Find a spot.
That's another great question.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios,
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Addressing Gettysburg's Ask a Gettysburg Guide. What are we at? Number 108, I believe it is. And today we have licensed battlefield guide Mike Rupert, who's been on the show numerous times, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, 5 times. And we're talking about the Louisiana Tigers. Now, before we get into it, Mike told me something that I had never heard before. Court Micker back there on the cameras. Court, have you heard this before, what we're going to say right now? Do you know what I'm going to say?
I know what you're going to say.
Because you never heard it, because I asked you before. And that is that it's not just Hayes's brigade that Louisiana Tigers refers to. It refers to, by the end of the war, you said, all Louisiana troops.
Yes.
And at Gettysburg, it refers to more than one brigade.
Yes.
But we're going to focus on Hayes's brigade so that we have an excuse to do another show with Mike in the future about the other brigade, which will remain anonymous right now. No one ever can figure it out.
I don't need to do that. I just got to remember not to say it, talk about it too much.
Yeah. Oh, you could make a reference to it, of course. We'll get into it more later on. But anyway, Mike, you wanted to start off with something, I think.
Yeah, I guess a little bit of personal data stuff, if you will.
Okay.
First of all, am I correct that you only made 53% on the written exam?
Yes, but my goal was 50.
Oh, but listen to me.
Yes.
There is nobody in this entire genre who listens to more people, who has exposure to more things related to Gettysburg.
Which is why it's pathetic.
And so that's right. And so how could you let us down? Whenever we recorded, think about this.
Yeah.
Whenever we recorded one of the top 10 at Gettysburg, we were at the Alabama Monument. And after we were all done, we wound up talking for, my goodness, it had to be pushing 2 hours.
I remember
about the whole, Matt Callery becoming a guy.
Right.
And I thought at that point that you were going to do this.
Well, I tried.
But did you really try?
No.
53%?
I did not try. No. So here's what I did. I said I realized quickly that the amount of time that I spend actually not doing Gettysburg, while doing this show,
right,
was growing. So in other words, it used to be like I could immerse myself in it when I first started, but once it became a business, what we're doing right now is the least amount of my time spent, and learning has taken a back seat. And so with all of the stuff that I've heard, it's basically smoothed the wrinkles in my brain out.
Okay.
Because it's just too much, and it's like overload. But but it's all coming at me randomly.
Okay.
And so I didn't have time to study. A few friends of mine and I did a study group, and we all did pretty well in the study group. None of us passed the test. Right. One of them couldn't take it, but was supposed to. But yeah, I just realized, I'm going to do this as a gauge to see if I really should even bother. And I realized I shouldn't bother with it. I'll probably take it again just to see if I can improve.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you why. I would be a good guide. I'm good with people. I can talk to people.
Clearly.
Right. Nobody. Well, I'm sure people would dispute that, but people who aren't my enemies would not dispute that. I don't have what it takes to prove that I deserve to be a guide. I don't think the way you guys think. I don't retain information anymore the way I used to. And there is a certain art to what you guys do that I don't have. I look at you guys as classical musicians, and I look at myself as a jazz musician. It's like, man, just tell me the chords, you know? And then I'm like, beep, beep, biddly boop. And you guys are like, place. Yeah, and you guys are more, well, you have to be. You're just way more meticulous and succinct and learned, and I just really was never that guy. I'm more of a, I'll tell you stories as they pop into my head type of a guy. Well, and I know that I could take people. I've done it. I've taken friends and family around. I've seen you. Yeah.
I've seen you.
And they always enjoy it, and but they don't know what the hell. They don't know what I'm talking about, right? I'll just make up anything, The Germans, what are they doing here? But they but to jump through the hoops, I don't have the time to devote to it. Like, 6 questions, Lentz is going through all the different tiers and everything like that. And I don't have that time to devote. I would be wasting, if I did pass the written and I made it past the personality test, and then I was paired up with someone as a mentor, I'd be wasting their time because I would constantly be having to reschedule, and, it just wouldn't work. But thanks for rubbing it in.
All right. You're welcome.
Thanks for rubbing salt in the wound, Mike.
Now, on a lighter note,
okay.
I actually ran into somebody who you grew up with, and
no kidding.
He teaches in one of the New Jersey schools. As you know right now, May is...
New Jersey Teacher Day.
No, not New Jersey Teacher Day. It's called Bus Month, or if you will.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, where all the school
bus
buses.
Season.
Yeah, bus season when all the schools come out, and we got schools from everywhere. So, anyways, I'm doing a tour. They're from New Jersey, and I get them up on the Longstreet Tower, and then one of the chaperones comes over and starts talking to me about different things, and he says, "I grew up with somebody who was like nuts about the Civil War," and I said, "Oh yeah." And then so he starts telling me, and he moved out here, and he's like doing something. And I said, "Matt Callery?" And he was like, "Yeah."
Really?
Does this name ring a bell to you? He's a teacher in New Jersey somewhere. His name is Matt Huppert, similar to mine.
Oh, my God.
Huppert.
Huppity doodah. Yeah. That's what I used to call him.
And that's what he said. He said, "Ask him about doodah."
Yeah.
And I said, "I don't know nothing about your doodah here, buddy."
Leave your doodah out of this. Yeah, Huppity doodah. Matt Huppert. We grew up together. His dad was my Boy Scout leader, like a pack leader.
Okay.
And he was a grade above me. We were in a band together when we were like 19, 20 years old, I think, something like that. Oh, I love Matt. He was great.
Yeah,
he's a teacher
guy
now, huh?
Yeah, he was a chaperone.
A chaperone, yeah.
He was with the 8th graders from New Jersey. So.
Wow, his kid's in 8th grade already?
Well, I don't know.
Jeez.
Guess you lost touch with him.
I haven't talked to him. Actually, I have talked to him since I moved down here.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me know about Matt.
Okay.
Now I'm going to get in touch with him.
You want this note to remember?
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay. Now, my apologies to people who are impatient. But so what? Here we go.
Here we
go. The Louisiana Tigers.
Yes.
Now it is hot in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean anything in this story, or no?
Does it mean anything? Well, they're used to it.
Pull that mic a little closer to you, please.
The people who, of course, who are from that area are going to be certainly used to it. But what I wanted to do first, as far as Louisiana goes, is we need to talk about Louisiana's history.
Go ahead.
Because they wind up going back more than 300 years, long before, of course, the founding of our country. It first became a colony of France way back in 1718. And then France is going to run that area, and it's going to grow, of course, being Louisiana. You have the mouth of the Mississippi River there that leads into the Gulf. That's going to encourage all that shipping, if you will. So it's going to become a shipping area. It's going to become a very busy port very early. Spain's going to take over after the French and Indian War, and then French are going to take it over again in 1802 for a very short amount of time. And then, of course, Napoleon the First is going to wind up selling it to who? The United States with the Louisiana Purchase. However, throughout all of this time, you are going to have this international collection of people from all different places who are going to make up what Louisiana was by the time of the American Civil War. And so let's go over that a little bit. By the time we get here to, of course, the American Civil War, Louisiana became a state in what, 1812. It's the 18th state, but nonetheless, Louisiana and New Orleans especially is going to be that main shipping port on the lower Mississippi. The state was the main exporter, of course, of cotton and sugar, and a major importer of slaves. And think about this too, New Orleans is the largest city in the South. They're going to have 170,000 people who live in New Orleans alone. And if you think about that, compared to Gettysburg, how many soldiers wind up being crowded in this town? It's going to be 170,000 men over those 3 days. So
so it's the population of New Orleans. Wait,
What-
did you say New Orleans is
New
170?
Orleans, yeah. New Orleans is 170,000.
Okay.
And they are going to wind up, of course, whenever the Civil War starts, they're going to wind up providing thousands of troops to the Confederate cause. They also had some guys who did serve in northern units as well. But nonetheless, the city's location at the mouth of the Mississippi there is going to make it critical for both the Confederacy. Of course, it's in the South. It's a southern state who winds up seceding in January of 61. But aside from all that, this is going to be a target for both armies, if you will. Okay, make sense so far?
Yeah, sure.
All right. During the antebellum years, of course,
Pre-war years.
Pre-war.
For people who don't understand anti.
Antebellum, that means
Yeah.
before the war.
That's not that ant that always liked to pinch your cheeks.
It's going to grow to be one of the busiest cities in the nation. Much of the wealth is going to come from the slave trade. At its peaks, New Orleans is going to wind up having more than 50 slave markets that are going to be operating. This is going to generate lots of money for that entire area. And so it's also going to wind up changing the city's cultural makeup, if you will, in addition to that. In addition, don't forget about with the slaves moving in and out of New Orleans. Half the cotton grown in the United States is going to pass through that city. So that shows you how important it is. And this is also critical. By the time we get to just before the Civil War in 1860, this is important to understand, Louisiana, New Orleans is in quotes, the image of the Deep South. Make sense so far?
So, in other words, it's what everybody aspires to be like, and is that because of the French influence and everybody's
it's gonna be everything. Well, with the plantations and of course all the business, you got people with tons of money down there. Of course, much of that is wrapped up in the slaves and the slave trade and that whole thing.
Okay,
So, all right.
Okay, because of the port.
Yes, it's all about the port. Of course, we touched on this. January 61, what happens? Louisiana secedes. Louisiana secession is going to mostly be driven, if you will, by the governor at the time, who was Thomas More. So he's going to push, of course, for the secession convention, and they're going to wind up voting to leave the Union. And as war fever is going to wind up gripping the city, of course, thousands of men and boys are going to rush to sign up and volunteer to fight for their new Confederacy. Make sense so far?
You've got me.
Okay. Now, what I want to go over to, and this has to do with that whole cultural thing, as far as all the mix of languages and different ethnicities and all that sort of thing. And I just want to address it a little bit, which means we have to go to definitions of terms, okay?
Okay.
This comes from the Louisiana State University libraries. I'm using their definitions. I think they would be the authority here. And the first one that I want to talk about is Creole, okay?
Yes.
It's one of those confusing ones. It's like, does it mean this? Is it just language? Is it ethnicity? Is it the, the color of skin thing have to do with
I always
race?
thought it was like Yiddish. It's like a mix of...
Yes. Well, here is State University definition. In the European colonization of the New World, Creole referred to any person of Old World descent, meaning European or African, who was born in the New World. All right, it's going to get more complicated.
Okay.
The early use of the term did not refer to or was part of a system of racial classification. Rather, it was meant to identify people who were born and raised in the Americas but were not indigenous to the region. In Louisiana, particularly, after the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, and the influx of Anglo-Americans and immigrants, the term took on additional significance to distinguish those born in colonial Louisiana of French, Spanish, or African extraction and their descendants from the new arrivals after 1803. Okay? And so is that complicated enough?
Yeah.
And related to that distinction, Creole also came to be associated with the culture and the language, typically French, as you already touched on,
Oui.
of that distinct population.
So what's Creole?
I am not going over this again.
Please.
I want to go.
We'll play it back later.
All right, so I want to touch on two other terms here because this is going to come up as well.
All right.
So the one term, of course, is going to be Negro, and referring to that in antebellum, again, before the war, Louisiana, Negro or Negress described a person who did not have any European ancestry, okay?
Okay.
And then mulatto, historically, this term is meant to describe someone of mixed African and European ancestry. In Louisiana, first of all, you're going to have a lot of that. It is even more specific in describing someone who is believed to be one half African and one half European. That's your mulatto, okay?
Right, got that, yeah.
Good with those terms?
Okay.
All right, now, I want to go back to the whole war fever, if you will. Now, with war fever, and I found this out, I will say this, that a lot of my colleagues aren't really into the, or pay much attention to the whole living history aspect of Civil War study, if you will.
Sure.
But I find it fascinating.
Why is that?
Because especially whenever you have people who are serious as a heart attack, specifically guys like who are in the Liberty Rifles.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Those guys borderline as showmen. I mean, that's like a show. You know?
Right, but they do everything right, okay? So
Yeah.
everything from how things are made and the weapons they use, the tactics they used, what dress did they have at that particular time, whatever unit they happen to be, I keep hitting that, whatever unit they happen to be portraying, if you will.
Yeah.
So we can learn a lot from them. And so in paying attention to the Liberty Rifles and other things associated with that, I had come across something that would have been a fad, if you will. It started way back in Europe during the, of course, the revolutions, if you will, American Revolution as well. One of the things that the citizens would do, and the soldiers as well, to promote which side am I on, is going to be the use of cockades, okay? And they would wear these showing who they would be, of course, in favor of. And it wound up being so important. This is not related to the Louisiana Tigers, but this actually happened in Pittsburgh, my hometown. In Pittsburgh, side story here. Am I allowed to do side stories?
Yes, sure.
Okay, side story here. In Pittsburgh was the Allegheny Arsenal, which made all sorts of different supplies, ammunition, that sort of thing for the Union Army. And whenever the war breaks out, Colonel Symington was in charge of that arsenal. And Symington's daughter, I might be pronouncing his name wrong.
Symington?
Symington, I don't know. Symington, something tin, okay?
The colonel.
He's in charge of the arsenal. His daughter was seen with a cockade that would have been from the South. And this raised...
And that would have been distinguished by colors?
It would have been by colors, by streamers, by the button in the middle.
Explain, for people...
A cockade.
Explain a cockade.
A cockade is this, okay?
You know, even better. He brought a cockade.
Okay, and this one here...
Show us your cockade.
This one here, of course, is Louisiana, okay? There's a pelican button in the middle of it, and I even got you one, too, okay?
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did.
Here, Cord, go to my camera. Well, it was probably better when he had it. Sorry. Go ahead. You keep talking about it. I'll hold
Okay,
it.
and so with that cockade, I have a first-hand account from a lady in the South. Her name is Fanny Beers, and this is what she's going to say about the, of course, don't stick it on your head, the Louisiana cockade, if you will.
Okay.
And she's talking. Who does not remember the epidemic of blue cockades which broke out in New Orleans during the winter of 1860 and 61 and raged violently through the whole city? The little blue cockade with its pelican button in the center and its two small streamers. was the distinguishing mark of the secessionist.
Okay.
So there you go.
So they knew just by looking.
They knew by, of course, whichever cockade you would wear. And then the different states would have different ones, if you will. And the North is going to do this as well.
So it's like the AIDS ribbon, kind of. Like now, you remember the AIDS ribbon, and then now they're all in the same style, but they're different colors or mixes of colors, and they all mean different things. It's the same idea.
Yeah, same idea, but of course it dates back to way before the Revolution, which is pretty cool. And it was very popular as a Civil War, of course, is brewing, if you will, both in the North and South. Identifying mark secessionists are going to have from one of the southern states, and of course the northern one will have the northern states. Pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
All right, so there's our little culture piece, if you will.
I like that you brought the cockade.
So you're saying his daughter sabotaged the arsenal?
No, no. Oh, let me go back to the rest of the story there. So she was seen at church with, of course, a Southern cockade. I don't remember which state or if it was a generic Southern cockade. And there was an outrage in Lawrenceville where, of course, the arsenal is. And he is going to wind up being removed from command of that arsenal, largely due to the public outcry of his daughter wearing that cockade at church.
Okay.
Okay, so it was a pretty powerful statement, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay, nonetheless, so there you go.
Okay. All right.
All right, now I want to start moving into a little bit of background on the Tigers themselves. Okay, and by the way, Matt, you and I think you would do this anyways, but
Maybe.
you're good at interrupting. Okay. So I want you to feel free to do that. That's what I tell all my visitors. You are free to interrupt at any point in time.
Sure. No, yeah. You didn't need to tell me that. But thank you anyway.
All right. Background on the Tigers themselves. All right. With the Confederacy, of course, firing on Fort Sumter in 61, that's going to literally start the war. It was clear by May that Richmond is going to wind up being the focus, if you will, and that's where the capital is going to wind up moving to, especially after Virginia on April 17th votes to secede from the Union. All right?
Okay.
So we're going to move from Montgomery, Alabama to Richmond, Virginia, and then we're going to have the war fever, of course, go through all the southern states. Louisiana is going to do this as well. Same thing, just like all the other states. And they're going to wind up sending to Richmond, okay? Keep in mind, there are going to be Louisiana units who will serve in the Western Theater as well, but they're going to wind up sending almost 13,000 men to the Eastern Theater at the start of the war.
I'm sorry, did you say what their total enlistment was?
So, not total. I don't have totals here, but what they send to Richmond is going to be about 12,800 men. Okay.
So presumably there's more in other areas.
Oh, no doubt there's more in other areas, in the Western Theater and what have you.
Sure. Okay.
Especially because whenever we actually get to the two brigades, you're going to see that we're missing regiments, okay?
Gotcha.
And battalions. By that time, battalions kind of went by the wayside. That's another story. So they're going to wind up sending 10 full regiments and 5 battalions. What's a battalion, by the way? It's going to be an infantry regiment that has 2 or more companies, basically half a regiment, if you will, okay? And those are going to be very localized, raised, if you will, by very specific people. Wheat's Tigers is going to be one of them, and actually that's where the name comes from. We're going to wind up getting to that. Another thing I want to point out is that the Louisiana Tigers, as we know them, 2 brigades, and again, it's going to wind up going to anybody who's a Louisiana soldier, that they're going to wind up serving in all the major battles in the Eastern Theater, from First Bull Run to Lee's surrender at Appomattox.
Wow.
Okay? And by the time they get to Appomattox, out of all the guys that they wound up sending to the Eastern Theater, there are only going to be 400 who surrender at Appomattox, okay, at the end of those 4 years.
So out of the 12,000... 400 are at Appomattox.
Yes. Now,
they're not all dead.
No.
Some of them might have been transferred. Or
some of them could have been transferred. A lot of the battalions are going to wind up being disbanded and kind of morphed into other units.
Okay.
Some units are going to wind up going out into the Western Theater and all that sort of thing. Just to give you an idea, that's what's going to be like. That's remarkable.
It's a big drop in numbers.
All right, so now the name. Where does the name come from? The name is of the character, and of course the fame is going to be mostly of their being a rowdy, is going to be from Coppen's Battalion and the 14th Louisiana Volunteers. These are the two, and of course, the various accounts that come up, these are the ones who give the Louisiana that reputation of being known for riding, drinking, and especially thievery. These guys like to steal, okay? And one of the things that they're going to be referred to, and let me go with this a little bit further with the Tigers. The Tigers' name itself is going to come from Robert O. Wheat's 1st Special Battalion, where there's only one company that's known as the Tiger Rifles, who are just as rowdy as the Coppen's Battalion and the 14th Louisiana. And it doesn't take long until all Louisiana soldiers were branded the Tigers. And again, this is very early in the war. This is like before First Bull Run. The reputation for being stealing, being rowdy, and getting into fights actually happens even before they get to Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
Whenever these men sign up to join these various units, they're going to, the biggest Louisiana training camp for soldiers is going to be Camp Moore, which is named after the Louisiana governor. And so with that, they're going to have problems already in camp, okay? Because who are they recruiting from? They're recruiting, you're going to have don't forget you got high immigrants down there. So you have the Germans and especially the Irish, okay? The Irish, they're going to be, of course, known for their drinking. And it seems to be, from what I read about the Irish that were in the northern units and the Irish who were going to be in the various Louisiana units, the ones that came up from Louisiana, they're much bigger on drinking, fighting, and stealing, okay, than you hear about in the north, okay? That was just a way of life, and they're going to take that into the army with them.
Is that way of life? What were they, like river people? Or
they're going to be, well, here's the, this is how they're going to be described, that along with the branding of the name, it included the reputation of the hard-fighting shock troops, drinking whiskey and stealing. And this is understood by everybody in the North and the South, that they are the wharf rats from New Orleans and the lowest scrappings of the Mississippi.
How did I guess?
Those two descriptions is understood universally, North and South. Okay?
Okay.
Touched on, they're going to be in all the key battles. Let me just touch very briefly on a couple of these. I know we're going to be talking about Gettysburg specifically, but first of all, they're going to take a big part in holding back the Union initial advance at First Bull Run. That's July 61. So again, this all starts very early. And by the way, their reputation is going to wind up preceding them before they get to the battlefield. Because before they're actually moved out to the battlefield, the folks in Richmond, the citizens in Richmond, will be relieved when they go to the front because of all the drinking and the thievery.
Really?
Yes.
I can't imagine.
So they're relieved. So this is the kind of atmosphere that is in the Louisiana regiment.
It's like Philadelphia when they win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Basically like that.
And so
now that we're early on, I want to ask you a question about uniforms that is graciously asked by Matthew Gillespie here with the $10 super chat. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, we can ask a question during the show before we get to the calls and the submitted questions from our patrons with a $10 or more super chat, which of course goes to defray the cost of feeding Mike and Court and my fat belly. Okay, so Matthew Gillespie says, what's the story with the Tigers uniform? Not just zouave style, but the striped trousers.
Okay. I have, and this is one of the things that Ralph had asked as well. Okay. First of all, that's only going to wind up being, I can't get it. Can I get it? Because it's on the cover of Jones's book.
What do you mean, can you get it?
It's down there. Exactly what he's talking about.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I'll distract while you're bending under the table. I'll make faces at the audience. I mean, so, and by the way, what brigade? They weren't all in the same brigade at Bull Run. Is that right?
No, they were all mixed up.
They were all mixed up,
and they were not largely brigaded together initially either. Okay. So this is a morphing process. Just like, one regiment can move from one brigade to another. That's going on the entire time.
Okay.
All right. So if you're gonna pick a specific time, you would have to get the order of battle and say, okay, these guys were with this brigade mixed with Georgians and South Carolinians or whatever it happened to be. Now, his name's Matt?
Matthew. Yeah, Matt.
Okay. Well, Matt is asking about, he's asking about what's on the cover of this book. So if you can show that to them.
All right, we'll go to the cover of this book here. See those pantaloons?
Pantaloons.
Look
Okay.
at those striped pantaloons.
Painting courtesy of Don Troiani.
Yes.
Oh, very good.
Yes.
Very good, Courtney.
Yeah, Courtney. Okay, so that's the uniform that Matt is talking about. First of all, that is only one company in Wheat's battalion.
And no cockades visible.
Okay. Yeah, by that point, you know what? Soldiers did often wear cockades,
I know,
especially
on
on
the
their
hat.
on their hat and,
Yeah.
and such. Okay, so that was another very common thing. So with this uniform, the only thing I found that was a direct reference that's going to talk about it is whenever Wheat's Tigers is initially organized. Okay, so with that, you're going to have these rich guys down in New Orleans, okay, who have the war fever as well, and they have the ability, of course, to put the money towards these regiments. And there's going to be a gentleman who is a noted say that word,
Philanthropist.
philanthropist, okay, who is a Louisiana I can't say all the words. you
No,
know.
it's okay. It's all
Yeah.
right. It's all right.
Okay. He's a Louisiana plantation owner. His name is Alexander Richards, okay? And he's said to be, he's from Kentucky, Kentucky's wealthiest man. He's going to wind up being on Breckinridge's staff. But while he's in New Orleans, Richards became fond of one volunteer company called the Tiger Rifles, recruited from the back alleys, steamboats, levees, and jails of New Orleans. The Tiger Rifles became notorious for thievery and brawling. Now,
Now, if I'm going to raise a unit, one of the places I'm going to go is the jail.
yeah, because they can fight.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't give a shit.
Yeah, often they don't.
Right. They don't. Yeah, you're right.
And so, and continuing on, this of course is going to be that initial one. Wheat's Tigers, there's going to be a company that's initially formed by Captain White, Alex White. He organized and commanded the company, okay? And whenever he first organized that group of the Tiger Rifles, that was their company name designation, if you will. So where's the name Louisiana Tigers come from? Comes from the Tiger Rifles. It was one company in one battalion
Wow.
initially in the war.
So it spreads from
Yes.
one company in the beginning
yes.
to, by the end, all Louisiana troops.
Are known as Tigers.
These guys must have been insane.
Insane. Well, let's okay.
Right?
Let's go to their uniforms. Now, whenever that company with the Tiger Rifles company, one company in a battalion, were first organized, the men were issued regular Southern uniforms and wore wide-brimmed hats. And they would have banners along these hats, and these are some of the slogans that they would have on the hats.
Banners on the hats. That's awesome.
Lincoln's life or a tiger's death.
Damn.
Or a tiger in search of a black Republican, and then a tiger in search of Abe. Soon, however, Richards, remember the rich plantation guy from Kentucky, Richards is going to provide the company with Zouave uniforms. Now, Zouave is a craze that had started actually probably well before, actually with the French in the 1830s in the Crimean War. You got all the Zouave thing going on.
Right.
So it's also important to remember that both armies, or I should say both populations, North and South, are absolutely fascinated with the whole Zouave thing.
Yeah, they love the French.
Okay, yes, they love the French, and that includes all things military, French tactics,
Sure.
the whole 9 yards. And if you notice, whenever you went to West Point, you had to learn French because the manuals for instruction are in French.
A futon fort, as Napoleon would call it.
Yeah, je ne parle pas français.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, yeah, and I mean, also, a lot of the terminology, like out on Cemetery Hill here, we have lunettes around a small moon.
Right.
I believe that means in French.
Yes.
And if you look at them from above, they're crescent moons, small moons.
So,
Other terms, of course,
yeah, in echelon.
an echelon.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yes,
on and on.
On and on.
So with that, everybody fascinated with, of course, the French. And the Zouave uniforms is going to be part of that. And so Richards, again, the rich guy from New Orleans with a big plantation down there, every man is going to wear a red fez with a tassel, a red shirt in the style known of Garibaldi. Okay, Garibaldi, guy over there in Italy, thinks he's going to take over the Pope. Never happened. Another story, but he winds up, of course, influencing a lot of the people in the North and South as far as that goes. So Garibaldi with the red battle shirt, a blue trim jacket in red, baggy blue trousers with white stripes and white gaiters. So that whole thing with that painting that's on the front of this book comes from one company in one battalion.
So did that
And the only thing
catch on? Like did
no,
other,
no,
so,
no, no,
really?
no. Zouave dress. There's kind of a wide range, if you will.
So I mean specifically the striped pants.
The striped pants. Do you want to know what I think it was?
What?
I think this is just me speculating. Am I allowed to speculate?
Whatever you're willing to have go out there.
I know this is like recorded for all posterity.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
In paying attention to the various things that our series is a heart attack living history people will do. One of the things that was very common at that time, and I think there were even some haversacks they're going to be made out of. I guess this was like a standard drill that cotton drill that would be made on the looms, if you will.
Okay.
Where you have that blue and white articulating. It could be towels, could be bags, and then of course I think my guess is that whoever Richard contracted to make all this stuff, they probably said, "Oh, we got a lot of this here."
All right.
So let's make the pants out of this, because I could not find another Zouave unit that had the blue and white pants.
Even in the French army.
No, not even in French army. They're mostly going to be the red.
Yeah. What about
red
Court?
in Algeria? The ticking trousers, as I've heard them called I was one of those living history people for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Nerd.
Yeah,
No, I'm just
more or
kidding.
less. But I mean,
Court, why can't we see you on the camera?
that theory lends itself to like basically after Gaines Mill, the blue and white trousers. Like I always read that's when they kind of sort of started making themselves out, either through extensive use or just wearing out or whatever, but they weren't really replaced with more ticking fabric.
No, no,
yeah,
right.
So the contract was like filled, and they're like, yeah, that's what you get. That's what
yeah.
So they switched them to like a brownish type.
Yeah,
trouser.
I've seen a lot of red. I've read one where it was kind of a yellowish brown and even blue.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, once those initial pants wore out, they just got whatever they could get.
Like Rhode Island had special shirts for state troops.
After a while, you realize this is not practical. It looks good in a parade, but we're not taking this out into the field. Okay.
All right. Does that make sense?
It does to
Okay.
me. Yeah.
All right. Now. Okay, so back to our early involvement here. So all the units are going to wind up getting sent to Richmond that we talked about. They're going to be divvied up very awkwardly initially. But what are the Tigers going to take part of? Holding back the initial Union advance at First Bull Run. They assisted throughout Jackson's entire Valley campaign. At Second Bull Run, they're going to wind up throwing rocks whenever the ammunition runs out. That's going to be the 2nd Louisiana under the other Louisiana Brigade.
Oh, yes. The top secret one until we do that episode.
Briefly breaking the Union line at East Cemetery Hill, of course, at Gettysburg. Holding the Union breakthrough at Spotsylvania, and leading the attempted Confederate breakout at Fort Stedman in the Petersburg Campaign. So they are involved in pretty much everything, if you will.
I feel like were some of them under the command of somebody named Evans at Bull Run?
Evans, I imagine they might have been. Yeah, I don't know, or being at Gettysburg, I know that order of battle. I don't know the order of battle for First Bull Run.
This is coming from a video game, but it was a very accurate order of battle, and the uniforms were accurate too. But go ahead.
All right. So what I want to go back to is the whole organization with Wheat's Tigers, is it known? Because that's where they're going to wind up getting the name. Now, Chatham Roberdeau Wheat is the guy who's going to initially lead, of course, the Tigers. He is killed at the Battle of Gaines Mill in '62, but this is a monster of a man, if you will. I've heard varying weights for this guy, from 240 to 275, and then from 6'2 to 6'4. So this guy's a giant.
Big fella.
And if anybody who is going to be able to tame these wharf rats from New Orleans, it's going to be this guy here.
Okay.
And then later on, of course, Harry Hayes and some other commanders are going to step up to lead these men as well. So he is going to wind up leading them in the initial campaigns, and what I want to do now is a lot of the questions had to do with the reputation of the Tigers. And again, this happens very early. This happens even before they get to Richmond. And again, as we touched on, the Richmond citizens are happy that they're going to the front. However, let's touch on this as well, because this is going to come from a Union commander, if you will. Okay. George McClellan. Now, part of the Peninsula Campaign, this is going to be in 62. After the Battle of Williamsburg, which is early May 1862, Joe Johnston is going to keep pulling the Confederate Army closer and closer to Richmond. One of the units that's going to be left on the very end, the rear guard, if you will, is going to wind up being the 5th Louisiana Infantry,
Okay.
who are part of Hayes's brigade here. And so the commander is going to wind up being absent, and then all of a sudden the 4th Michigan is going to start to go forward. And the 4th Michigan is going to wind up kind of routing the 5th Louisiana Infantry, if you will. And so and it wasn't even part of the major battle of Williamsburg. I think that's May 5th, 62. This is going to be like an after action as the Confederate Army's pulling back up the peninsula. And of course, George McClellan is going to, you know how he likes to grandize things or dramatize more things.
Overestimate the enemy.
Yes, this is going to wind up being printed in Harper's Weekly again. So we got a first-hand source, and this is going to be less than a month after it happens. And the reason why I pulled this out is because this is going to emphasize or document, if you will, the early reputation that these Louisiana Tigers have, okay, well before Gettysburg. So here we go. This is Harper's Weekly, June 7th, 1862. About finished. That's the title of the little article here. George McClellan telegraphs that the 4th Michigan have about finished the Louisiana Tigers. We fancy we shall have some more dispatches of this tenure. These Southern bravos who call themselves Tigers and Lions and Gravediggers and Yankee Slayers, who carry black flags and refuse quarter to unarmed men, who dig up the corpses of our dead soldiers and send their bones to home to lady loves as trophies.
Ugh.
These creatures...
How romantic.
Yeah, how would you like to get that?
Yeah.
These creatures who are speaking the illustration of the brutalizing effect in the institutions among which they have been reared, and whose savage instincts would appall the most ferocious native of Dahomey or Pagonia. I don't even know who those people are. These fellows can never withstand the onset of Christian soldiery. They are capable of assassinating a Union man or whipping of a black woman to death. But when it comes to standing up in a fair fight against Northern men in anything like equal numbers, they run like hares. Brutality and manhood can no more coexist in the same individual than oil and water can mingle. We are not sorry to hear that the Louisiana Tigers are about finished. It's about time that some of those other Southern regiments, which have desolated the South and done their best to destroy the nation, were about finished too. A gentleman from Tennessee reports that in certain neighborhoods, rebel soldiers have not only destroyed crops and fences, but have wantonly torn down houses, barns, and burned everything that would burn, and so thoroughly obliterated every vestige of improvement from the land that the wretched owners are now returning to their homes under cover of our flag, experience some difficulty discovering whereabouts of where their houses stood. Others tell of more fearful stories of outrages. Outrages nameless and horrible of whole districts in which not a woman or girl has escaped the fiendish brutality of the Texans and Louisianians. Say that 3 times fast. Louisianians. It's about time, in the name of God and humanity, the authors of these atrocities should be finished. So they've already established that reputation.
Yeah.
And this is going to be well known, of course, to the northern public as well.
Basically, he's saying they're bullies. They're not when it's is that what he's making the case that they're when it's time to stand up and fight against men who could shoot
they
back,
run away.
They run away.
Yeah.
But when it's up against defenseless people, they are brutal.
Yes. That's crap, you know that.
Yeah, of course. Of course. But it's funny just how
it's propagated in the paper.
Sure.
And so their reputation is certainly going to go before them as they approach Gettysburg as well. We're going to touch on some things there. We know that they get there a week before the battle. They're going to be part of Early's men moving through Gettysburg June 26th as they're on their way over to York. So before we do that, I would like to go over Harry Hayes himself. Okay.
Yeah.
So Harry Hayes is going to be our main.
So wait, just as we're keeping up, how many commanders did they have before Harry Hayes?
Before Harry Hayes,
we got
of the whole brigade. It depends on how the brigade was organized.
It's like how we're counting the brigade.
Yeah, what you're counting the brigade. I'm going to say probably 3 or 4.
Okay. Let's see here. Actually, let me read a.
Go ahead.
Summarized excerpt here from Brad Gottfried's book, The Brigades of Gettysburg here. While all 5 regiments were mustered into service between May and July 1861, only 3, the 6th, 7th, and 8th Louisiana, were present at the First Battle of Manassas. We got that. Where each served in a different brigade. We got that. These regiments and the 9th Louisiana were joined after the battle to form the 1st Louisiana Brigade, right? Okay. Which saw considerable service during Stonewall Jackson's Valley Campaign under Brigadier General Richard Taylor.
Son of the president.
There's one. Because Taylor was ill, Colonel Isaac Seymour commanded the brigade at the start of the 7 Days Campaign. There's 2. The brigade's first battle at Gaines's Mill was not auspicious, as Seymour became confused in Boatswain Swamp, and when one of the brigade's most popular officers was killed, the men turned back after sustaining heavy losses. The 5th Louisiana was added in July 62. Its commander, Colonel Henry Forno, assumed command of the brigade. So now, what are we on, 3? Yeah, 3. His tenure was short, as he was wounded during the savage fighting during the Battle of Second Manassas. Harry Hayes of the 7th Louisiana was promoted to the rank of Brigadier General and given permanent command of the brigade prior to Maryland Campaign, and attorney, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what do we got, 4?
I thought that was 5 or 6.
5 or 6. I think we're up to like 12.
Yeah.
Let's just say 12. No, look, Taylor, the other guy, Seymour.
But let me say this too.
Forno, yes, and then Hayes.
Those commanders, that can often happen. If somebody's sick, if somebody's doesn't around, you have a temporary brigade commander.
Right.
But I wouldn't say that temporary brigade commander is the big cheese in the brigade.
Commander.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course,
Okay.
of course, of course.
All right, so Harry Hayes. Want to touch on him? He's Ewell's Corps, Early's Division, Hayes Brigade, and his 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Easy to remember. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the Louisiana regiments. He's going to number about 1,300 men here at Gettysburg. Okay, he's going to be 43 years old, so he is a little bit older. He does have U.S.-Mexican War experience, but he is actually not a professional soldier. He is a lawyer from New Orleans, and however, he's a heavy drinker himself, and he's going to prove to be a hard fighter and a heavy drinker. You already said this. He's an original colonel of the 7th Louisiana, known as the Pelican Regiment. Of course, Pelican, symbol for Louisiana. At First Bull Run is going to be the first time that one of his superiors is going to note that he led with satisfactory coolness and skill. Okay, so he's first going to be recognized. You just said this. In July 62, he's going to be promoted to Brigadier General. And now, as a brigade commander, Harry Hayes is going to have a lot to do in taming those tigers. Mm-hmm. Okay. In the winter of 62 to 63, while camped around Fredericksburg, so many civilians are going to wind up complaining about the tigers' thievery that General Early, the division commander, puts more and more pressure on Hayes to improve discipline. And Hayes is going to try to get the brigade transferred with no success. And this is a quote from this guy here, Harry Hayes. By the way, this is a image of Harry Hayes from, let me hold it up to the camera. Hold it up to the camera here.
There you go. That's good.
Is that good?
Yep.
Okay, Harry Hayes at Gettysburg, we are told he has a full beard. This one here is from the Library of Congress, so we don't have to worry about any copyright things.
Yes.
All right. Now, this is a quote from this guy here. After, of course, in the process of trying to get the brigade moved out. No one in this army would have such a damn pack of thieves but me. If you can find any general in this army that is damn full enough to take you, then you may go. Of course, nobody went. Yeah, so they're going to stay with Harry Hayes. Of course, we'll get into some battle stuff here. He's going to wind up being wounded at Spotsylvania in May of 64. I think a bullet to the shoulder there. He's going to go back to Louisiana, and for the rest of the war, he's going to be on recruitment duty. Then after the war, goes back to being a lawyer.
All right, so there's Harry Hayes. So he was a lawyer. So he was in the Mexican War. Do we know what he did in the Mexican War?
I do not know. I did not put that down.
Was he an officer at least, or?
Don't know that either.
Okay,
just experience.
Well, this is live TV.
Yes, it's live TV, and by the way, it is okay for a guy to say, "I don't know."
Yes, that I know. See, I said that on like at least 60% of the questions I answered on the guide exam, and so I don't know why they say it's okay. I guess it's okay for a guide to say that. Right?
Oh boy,
but not a test taker. Real quick here. And this is interesting because somebody has us figured out here. Civil War Regiment sent in a $10 super chat, and he said there's very little on Nichols Williams Brigade at Gettysburg. Were they referred to as Tigers too? A shout out to the Louisiana state mascot is Tigers after these guys. So go Tigers. Okay, you figured out our secret. That's the next episode that we're going to do with Mike, the other Louisiana Tigers.
Okay.
We were trying to keep it a secret.
Let me say, can I just touch on that?
Sure.
Okay. Nichols Brigade, who was led by Jesse, I keep wanting to say Weedleton, Jesse Williams here.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Okay, by Jesse Milton Williams here. That's going to be the 1st, 2nd, 10th, 14th, and 15th Louisiana. Now, remember at the onset, we said that the 14th Louisiana is going to be one of those regiments who has the reputation of the character and nature of those Louisiana soldiers. So that 14th is actually in Nichols/Williams Brigade.
Okay.
Okay, so that's why, and other references that I've seen too, that they are referred to as Tigers.
By Gettysburg.
By Gettysburg. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, when I get to Richmond. Yeah.
So very early on, it spreads from that one company out to everybody.
Another thing I think maybe this might help things understand as well is the 1st Louisiana Brigade under Hayes and Taylor and such, the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, they tended to be more involved in the spotlight action, if you will. Does that make sense? Because even
when you do this,
even whenever you come up, even when they were coming up the valley, and you got the Second Winchester battle going on.
Yeah.
It's going to be them who wind up taking the fort.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas Nichols' men were off to the side. They still participated, but they didn't get the feature action. Then what winds up happening here at Gettysburg? Of course, the Nichols' men wind up. Johnson's division, you got 3 brigades attacking, 1 Virginian, 1 Louisianan, then Stewart's mixed Confederate brigade. And Harry Hayes is going to be joined up with Avery's North Carolinians, and they have the feature, of course, on East Cemetery Hill on the evening of the 2nd.
Which we'll get to in a bit.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe that's why we kind of associate the Tigers being Hayes only.
Well, I would also imagine, too, that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but Hayes's men were stationed in town. So there's a lot of accounts from the civilians who encountered them.
Yes, whereas,
Nichols
because
was not
he's going to
town.
he's going to be at the Hanover Road,
Right.
and then he's going to wind up moving towards Culp's Hill.
So I would imagine that's why we're always thinking of that, because civilians left accounts of the way they were,
Right.
the way they behaved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's my guess.
Yeah, which is similar to, actually, compared to some of the things that were early on, what they take and do in Gettysburg is a lot more mild, if you will.
They're a little better behaved
Yes,
by this point.
yes, they are.
Yeah.
Well, some of them do get executed for various things. So
Related to Gettysburg.
not related to Gettysburg
okay.
for earlier thing.
Yeah.
For
So they learned their lesson.
yes,
is what you're
and
saying.
in fact, when this happened, I can't remember if this was whenever they were still in Camp Moore, or once they got to Richmond. But there was in one of the camps. Don't remember if it was Louisiana or Virginia there. But anyways, this is what happens. 2 Tigers are going to wind up approaching a guard who is guarding the commissary stores, if you will. And they're going to wind up beating up the guard and taking what they want. These 2 men, as an example, this is actually from Wheat's battalion, are going to be executed to try to show that we have to have some order in the military. Right. And so once I think they did that a few times, they're still going to get out of hand, especially with the booze.
But they'll always remember those executions. Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Fair enough. All right. So where'd you leave off?
Where'd I leave off?
Hayes is in command.
Okay, Hayes is in command. And what I want to start to touch on is the way that they, of course, are going to wind up moving into the town itself, if you will.
Okay.
And we already mentioned this. They're going to get here a week before. They're going to move in with early. Now, one of the things, the accounts that you're going to hear from Gettysburg is that the Confederate cavalry comes into the town and says, then people were afraid of the Confederate cavalry, and then they say something to the effect, well, wait till the Louisiana Tigers get here. And then everybody, freaks out.
Right.
Well, the cavalry that's going to be with them, only 2 regiments who are assigned to early and part of Ewell's corps there, are going to be the 17th Virginia and the 35th Virginia. So they're riding with them out in front, if you will. Less than 500 men. Over 400, but less than 500 men. That's whenever the people in the town talk about the cavalry mentioning Louisiana Tigers, it's those guys, 17th Virginia, 35th Virginia Cavalry.
So that's Jenkins?
One is from Jones and one is from Jenkins.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, see? Should know.
See? Is it 35th from Jones and 17th from Jenkins?
No, I think it's the
other way around.
Yeah.
See, that's why I got 50%.
Yeah. I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Okay.
All right. So now, of course, coming to town, what winds up happening is the Confederates are moving up the valley. Lee has 75,000 men spread out, taking anything they want off the farmers. Of course, they're paying with Confederate money. Lee does not want them, quote, stealing, effectively doing it anyways. And so what's going to wind up happening, Gordon is going to be leading, if you will, and he is going to chase the Pennsylvania militia, who are going to wind up scattering, and his Georgians are going to wind up being on the sidewalks there. And then Jubal Early is going to wind up leading the road-weary Tigers. We had some rain and some other stuff going on. And the Tigers are going to arrive in the vicinity around the afternoon on the 26th. And Early's going to order General Hayes to halt and camp along the Monmouthsburg Road, just about a mile from Gettysburg. The Tigers very quickly began ripping down all the wooden fences around Oak Hill and preparing campfires to cook their rations. And soldiers are going to wind up initially filling their canteens with fresh water from Willoughby Run. We know something else that the soldiers often put in their canteens, especially once they get into town and are able to buy some liquor.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Didn't they also find several barrels of whiskey that they confiscated?
Yeah. The whole barrel of whiskey thing. And this is getting ahead of the story, but this is going to go to those the whole atmosphere and character of the Louisiana Tigers. There's an account from a soldier this is going to be right before the attack on East Cemetery Hill. And since you said barrel, I have to say it now or I'll probably forget.
Okay.
Because I didn't write this down.
Sure.
There is a prisoner from the 153rd Pennsylvania who was captured on day 1.
Right.
And the Confederates are going to have some of the prisoners helping out at the German Reformed Church that's off of High Street there.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Across from the Borough Hall.
Yes. And so this soldier, who's a prisoner, Pennsylvania soldier, is going to write in one of the things that he had written down about his experiences. He writes down that as Hayes's Tigers, before they wind up moving out, he's going to be able to see a barrel with the lid knocked off, and they have one of those dipper cups, which is about probably close to a quart. And he noticed that whenever they were dipping it into the barrel, that one cup, he said it could not have been water, because one cup, 4 guys are going to be able to take a drink from it. Okay, so they're passing it around.
Nobody's chugging that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it kind of lends to that the whole idea of the Tigers and whiskey is a very thing to do.
Yeah, we were talking the other day about, I forget exactly what we were talking about, but drinking. And I think it was 6 questions. Lent said, compared to the way we drink today, if we saw the way people drank alcohol back then, we'd be appalled.
Yeah, how are you alive?
Yeah, exactly. Because there was no regulation as to alcohol by volume, and it was just
no. And I would imagine that sometimes the whiskey was quite potent.
Oh, I'm
depending
sure.
on who made it. So.
They don't call it rot gut for nothing, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. So, 26th, they're going to be just outside of town. Hayes is going to wind up sending 2 regiments to help catch the fleeing militia, but they're not going to be able to catch up with them. Adjutant Seymour. By the way, Seymour is going to be one of the staff officers for Harry Hayes, okay? And Seymour is going to be he's going to be a pretty decent writer, and I got 3 books that I recommend, and his memoirs that Jones edited is one of the things that I remember. So I got a lot of different things from Seymour, who was on Hayes' staff as well. Okay. So with that, Seymour is going to wind up, and I guess we all commanders do this. He exaggerated the Tigers' role in dispersing the militiamen, who, this is a quote from Seymour, "These Tigers, who no doubt had previously resolved to die if need be in defense." Oh, I'm sorry. He's talking about the militiamen. So initially, they were ready to die if need be in defense of their homes and friends. They changed their minds when they caught the glimpse of our 2 regiments, Tigers, in the distance, and most precipitately and ingloriously fled the field. Darkness coming on, our men went back to camp, weary from their long and useless march in the mud and rain. Now, several of these Tigers, as well as some of French's cavalrymen, are going to stop at a farmhouse where 18-year-old Sue Black lived. It's about 4 miles north of Gettysburg, and she reported, again, a quote from her, "I counted 100 who came into the yard and got tired of counting and quit." I like how they just say matter-of-factly say things. One young fat fellow, that alone sounds unusual, because these guys are, in many cases, just as bad as I am.
Well, they're all walking all day.
Yeah.
I mean, how could he be fat?
Yeah, and the average Civil War soldier is 5'8", 140 pounds.
Right.
Okay, so.
I haven't been 140 pounds since the 6th grade.
I wish I was 140 pounds.
Jesus Christ. Wow.
Okay, one young fat fella. This is Sue Black talking. One young fat fellow sitting on the porch steps, barefooted and footsore, was in bad humor. He said he belonged to the Louisiana Tigers, and one of those Tigers gave me a big Jew's harp. One of those, yeah. So a few, and then of course Gordon is going to be in Gettysburg after he occupies it, and then it's going to start to move on. A few Irish soldiers from Hayes' brigades are going to wind up stacking arms and walk into town. They stroll down Baltimore streets to its southern outskirts. There they're going to find some residents of course, Gaelic descent who sold them liquor. Soon a brawl began, as drunken Louisianians are going to start fighting with the citizens in the town.
Wow.
Private from Gordon's 31st Georgia, he's designated provost guard, if you will. He reported that Tigers were busy, this is a quote, beating up the old citizens.
The old citizens.
When the guards finally arrived, they did not arrest any of the riotous Irishmen or townspeople, so they just let it go.
What was the date on that?
That's the 26th.
That's the 26th.
Yeah.
So they're camped outside of town.
Yeah, just outside.
In the fields, and then they stack and go in. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why it's so leisurely.
Yeah, and in fact, the Tigers are going to be left and kept out of town. But, you're going to have your few that trickle in, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay, so while they're going to wind up being camped, just want me to continue with this because there's some other
Sure.
quotes in here as far as the rebels and how they're going to be acting and all that stuff.
Yeah, so we're just for people who are just catching us. We're pre-battle, June 26th, when Early's division comes into town, and Early kind of demands stuff from the town, and the town's like, we ain't got none.
Yeah.
And it's because they sent it all away, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah.
But so these are quotes still from that point in time?
Still from that. And by the way, someone who is excellent with gathering these quotes together is the third book that I recommend, which is going to be Scott Mingus, of course, Louisiana Tigers and the Gettysburg Campaign. Mingus is going to collect a whole bunch of civilian accounts. Being a local from York, of course, they wind up going to York. He has a lot on Second Winchester and all that sort of thing as well. So it's very nice to have it all together like that.
Yeah. And so I think this is good, too, because it kind of paints a picture as to the character of these guys,
Tigers.
right?
Yes, which is what I'm...
So that's what you're doing right now?
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead. Keep going. I like these.
Okay, so another soldier, Thomas Reed, I believe he's from the 8th Louisiana Infantry. He's going to wind up, of course, these guys are out there looking for food. He's going to stop at a house, and this is his quote. A little Dutch woman is going to wind up answering and beg the tiger to help himself to her property but spare the household. And he's going to say, she was the worst scared woman I'd ever seen. When she learned that all he wanted was food, she nervously ushered Reed into her home while she collected food items for him to take back. Other soldiers arrive. All of a sudden, we got a line outside the door, okay? And as the tigers are lining up, the little woman went almost crazy. And Reed, this 8th Louisiana Tiger, so we can show a little bit of grace here, is going to console her as best he could, but he leaves with the food. Okay?
Of course he does. Wasn't there someone who... something about them mixing gunpowder in their whiskey or something like that?
Yeah, that's also what that's going to be Leon Gusman, okay? Who is going to be part of the whole attack on East Cemetery Hill. That's coming up later.
Oh, okay.
I actually kind of wanted to do a little tribute to Leon Gusman by putting some whiskey and gunpowder in a canteen, swish it around, and then taking a swig, if you will. However, I thought better because of course, black powder is an explosive. And I don't want you to get in trouble because Mike brings a pound of black powder into the studio.
Into the building. Yeah, with the accelerant mixed in, the alcohol accelerant mixed in there. Yeah. No, thank you.
Oh, did you know that we
have regular whiskey if you care to partake?
Well, no.
Okay.
No. So did you know that if you put whiskey with gunpowder, the gunpowder doesn't go off until all the whiskey burns off, which is kind of weird. So the whiskey will burn off, that low flame, then all of a sudden... whoosh,
I gotcha.
Yeah. Apparently,
that makes sense.
Apparently, that was the way that they used to test the proof of the alcohol. That if the gunpowder did go off, eventually let off, then it was close to 100 proof.
Interesting.
Crazy stuff.
How do they figure that stuff out?
I don't know. Somebody's bored.
Yeah, that is what it is usually, I think.
Just one other thing I want to talk about. There's going to be a Harrisburg, of course, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Heard of it.
Reporter who winds up being held back by the rebels, but he winds up receiving a pass to go through the Confederate lines. And he's going to stop at a tavern near Cashtown, where he encountered 3 wild rebel Irishmen stragglers from Early's force. They had filled their canteens with whiskey, so it's not just Leon Gusman who's going to do this. In fact, there were at least one, maybe 2 other accounts where the Louisianans are going to fill up their canteens with whiskey, which is kind of crazy because you need water to survive.
Right.
All right.
But do you?
They had filled their canteens with whiskey and evidently been indulging in their national proclivities. The journalists judged them to be a fair example of the lower order of rebel soldiery. Emboldened by the liquor, one of them philosophized on the war. What in the devil are yins fighting for? You may hate us now, but you'll never put us down. By my soul, We'll fight until the last man of us is killed, and then, be jabbers, the woman will take a hand at it. You may fight us for all eternity, and then we won't be whipped there after all.
Wow.
The amused newspaper man is going to say, such a specimen of the language and sentiment of these misguided people. They have said they've been with Stonewall Jackson in all of his campaigns. They were, and had never been whipped yet. And what was more, the Yankees could never raise enough men to do it.
Now, did it actually say yins, or is that your Pittsburgh coming out?
Oh, that's my... Did it say yins? That's my Pittsburgh.
Because you said yins, and I was like, no way they wrote that. Okay.
All right, yeah, we got a Pittsburgh problem.
By the way, here, 6 questions, Lentz. Thank you for the super chat. He says, this is a day for Harry Hayes on Addressing Gettysburg. Patrons who listened to the Reconstruction episode released earlier today can learn that he was involved in the 1866 New Orleans riot.
Yes, he was.
So there you go.
Yeah,
Patreon.com/Addressing Gettysburg, by the way.
Yeah, he winds up being removed as the sheriff after that. So,
thanks, Mike. I totally forgot about that. And we only recorded it last week. See what I'm talking about?
See,
I can't remember.
That's why you sucked on the exam.
It's so true. I'll tell you about it later. Anyway, go ahead.
Just one more thing here with the whole thing with town. Hayes, again, our commanding brigadier general, he is going to allow each man a pint ration of whiskey taken from the Gettysburg taverns. And some of the Tigers are going to be able to get more, okay, if you're kind of a little more forceful, I would imagine. And pretty soon, all the Louisianans are going to be inebriated. Lieutenant Jackson, one of the Tigers, is going to recall that the entire brigade got drunk, and I never saw such a set in my life.
Can you imagine that? Imagine you're in the rest of the army, and you just hear this hooting and hollering and whooping, and, you know, you're like one of the other brigades.
Mm-hmm.
And you just look over and you go, oh, it's the Louisiana boys again.
Yeah.
You know, it's them there Tigers.
Okay, so they're going to be moving on to York. York is a much bigger prize. I think the population of York at the time of the battle, somebody correct me on this, somewhere around 12,000-ish, I don't know. Okay. But nonetheless, a lot bigger than Gettysburg, which means what? They got a lot more stuff and a lot more money and a lot more things to take.
Mm-hmm.
And so Early is going to do quite well over there in York. In fact, they hang out for a couple days.
Yeah, now, did they, you know, in Gettysburg, they knew the Rebs were coming, and a lot of people loaded trains with their valuables, of business owners and stuff like that.
Or just,
did York do that? Or no, York caved, didn't they?
York is going to cave, and I guess...
and it had a population of 8,600 in 1863.
8,600, so that's 4 times the size of Gettysburg.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, they were able to get a lot of stuff because of what Early was able to take out of there. I remember it being an insane amount of things that they're able to take, to say nothing of that's not reported.
Now, did they take it or were they giving it to them?
It probably would have been a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I would imagine. Now, remember, Lee's General Order number 72 says, I don't want you stealing stuff. You pay for it. But what do you pay for it with?
Confederate money.
Yeah.
So you're essentially stealing it.
All right. So on the way, there was an incident that happened on the way to York. Mingus talks about this, where there were 2 of the Tigers who were... was it the 7th or the 9th? I don't recall. But anyways, 2 of the Tigers were fighting amongst themselves, which is something they did quite often, okay? And apparently, the colonel was tired of hearing about this, and he's going to go back, and he's going to wind up finding those 2 guys, and they're going to take down some fence rails, and they're going to set up an impromptu boxing ring.
Oh, nice.
And he makes the 2 men fight it out, okay? Then after they fight it out, they're both all bloodied up. They're going to wind up. He tells them, go down, of course, to the stream and clean yourselves up. And so both of the guys wind up going down to the stream near the farm that they happen to be by, and they're both within, like you and I are close to each other. They're cleaning themselves up, and they both start laughing because of what a great time they just had.
Wow.
So
to be young.
To be young, yeah, and to be
drunk.
a tiger. Hold my beer. Next time you wind up in a hospital. Yeah,
right.
That's the next thing you see.
That is such a guy thing, though. I think you want to kill each other. You're getting all bloodied and everything, and then
we can forget
almost
about
like that.
Yeah.
The moment passes, and you realize the absurdity of it, and you laugh, and now you're bonded for life.
Yeah.
Best friends. All of my close friends. That's how we met.
Okay.
In a fight. Court, remember I bloodied you up pretty bad?
I remember it the opposite.
What?
I thought.
Sorry, Court, your mic is not working. Sorry.
Hello? Hello?
Okay.
It seems like my mic is working. You just
Maybe it was the opposite. I don't know. But the point is...
we were fighting on Carlisle Street.
We were.
With
and we were singing, "When you're a jet, you're a jet." We had a whole thing going.
Wow.
we were straight up shooting at each other.
Yeah, we were. We were.
It was nuts.
And we were terrible shots.
Oh, yeah.
We both missed.
Oh, killed a lot
The
of
poor old lady behind me, though.
dead.
She got it. Anyway, you were saying.
Okay, so they're going to go, and then what's going to wind up happening? June 28th, what happens? Lee finds out Union Army's a lot closer than he ever expected.
Right.
That whole thing, by the way, I know the movie has its issues, but that movie has brought more people to this battlefield to this day, even to this day,
Amen.
than a lot of people want to give credit for. So I give the movie credit when credit's due. One thing, the whole story with Harrison in the beginning, about finding out that the entire Union Army is already across the Potomac and in Maryland, very surprising to General Lee. Remember, he thinks they're still down in Virginia. And so with that, where's Lee's army on June 28th? Scattered all over the place in and around the Cumberland Valley and some part of Early's division over there in York. Key about Civil War fighting is what? Get together. We got to bring our men together. So he's going to start concentrating. Why does the battle happen here? 10 road network pulling these two massive armies together. And so with that,
Do you think Lee's diarrhea began on the 28th when he learned that information?
I'm I don't know. Depends how many cherries he had.
I think we blame cherries, but it might be just so that he could save face. I think he was scared.
Scared of what?
The fact that he was so spread out. And
Well, yeah, but you
Union
got to get your army
was-
together.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be ordered to concentrate.
Yeah.
So
And
it was
so
an IBS situation.
It was. Yes,
That's-
it was.
That you heard it here first, folks.
Right.
you heard it here first.
You heard it first. Lee had IBS. All right, go ahead.
And so as they're coming towards the town, we know that the whole battle is going to begin west of town with Heath's division. Early and Rhodes are going to wind up coming essentially from the north and from the northeast because they were initially heading back towards Carlisle. They're going to eventually coming down from that area. And by the afternoon of day one, they're going to be coming down the Carlisle Road and then the old Harrisburg Road. And out in front, they're going to be coming into contact. Now, I'm going to skip over the whole thing with Heath, west of town, First Corps for the Union Army and all that sort of thing. I'm going to pick it up where the Tigers, who are featured folks today.
Yeah. We know enough about how it started. We've done a million shows on that.
Yes. And so with that, Confederates begin their attack in earnest right after 2 o'clock on day one. And the Union line's going to start, of course, to buckle, if you will. Over there on Barlow's Knoll, of course, you're going to have Barlow's division going to get knocked off by Doles and Gordon. Who is coming up behind Gordon but Harry Hayes's Louisiana Tigers? Initially, as they're coming down the old Harrisburg Road, they're going to be astride. They got regiments coming towards the town on both sides of the road, in the road. So they're coming down the old Harrisburg Road. And as they do, Gordon's brigade is going to wind up pushing the Union men to where the almshouse is today. And then Gordon is going to wind up stopping. Why does Gordon stop? First of all, he's going to have, number one, very light casualties, but it says that he had run low enough on ammunition that he paused his regiment of 1,800 Georgians, little less than 18. Maybe they had, of course, they had some casualties.
Yeah.
But they're stopped near the almshouse in a brigade formation to replenish their ammunition.
Okay.
Hayes is going to wind up continuing forward. As Hayes is going to wind up passing them, they're going to wind up finishing off, if you will, what's left of the chunk of the 11th Corps that is on the eastern side of the Carlisle Road. Got that so far?
I have it, yep.
Okay.
So in other words, in front of, like, basically sort of where the college soccer field is, No.
You're on the wrong side.
I'm on the wrong side of the Carlisle Street.
Weiss Market.
It's where Weiss Market
Yes.
is and
Yes.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Yep.
So Jubal Early's going to see Gordon sweep the field and sends Hayes' brigade forward, Avery on its left to continue down against the 11th Corps. Now, I want to talk about an artillery unit that's going to come up against Hayes, and that's going to be Lewis Heckman. Heckman, for the Union Army, he is in Osborne's 11th Corps Artillery, and he's going to go out there kind of as a last resort, just like Coster's Union soldiers were sent out as a last resort to try to buy some time for the rest of the 11th Corps to fall back. And so Heckman's going to go out there. Heckman has 4 Napoleons. And I want you to think about this, that the 4 Napoleons, once they get out there, they're effectively going to be by themselves. I mean, you got part of Wilkinson's battery who's falling back as well, but the last one to leave that attack Confederates are making, this is day 1, is going to be Heckman against the Louisiana Tigers. Okay? Now, what I have here, I do have another first-hand account that comes from Sergeant Cecil Reed and Heckman's artillery battery for the Union.
Okay.
And I kind of like these things because if it's a close date, remember we try to take sources that are closer to the battle.
Sure.
This is going to come from July 24th, 1863 in the Cleveland Morning Leader. Okay, so Sergeant Cecil Reed had sent this account back to his hometown, if you will. And so this is what he says. And I don't know if I'm still centered. Am I still centered?
You're okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, tell me if I veer off too long, because this chair is a swivel chair and I move around a lot.
You're fine.
And this is Sergeant Cecil Reed writing. Okay, first of all, to preface this, Heckman is going to be out there against the Louisiana Tigers for probably a half an hour, maybe not even a half an hour.
Okay.
He goes out there last. He's going to wind up only firing with 4 cannon, 113 rounds, and most of it's going to be canister. What's canister? Close range. That means these Tigers are going to be close to them. And he's saying, supposing that many of our kind friends of Cleveland would like to know something of our movement since we left Fredericksburg, the part we took in the great and glorious Battle of Gettysburg, and I, being at leisure now, will give you a short sketch of our travels. And I'm just going to go to the battle part. We arrived in the field in due time, and it was not long until we were assigned a position by General Howard in a field a little north and east of Gettysburg. We had hardly got our guns into position before the order came from the captain to commence firing. There was a brigade of rebels, that's Hayes' Louisiana Tigers, advancing to take us without any ceremony. No sooner said than done. We commenced firing them, giving them our best wishes in the shape of shell and canister, and mowed them down like wheat.
God.
But on they came, closing up their ranks whenever they were torn asunder by our shots. And they were not idle all the time. They were pouring in volleys with telling effect. Our men were falling fast, and they were coming so close that some of their skirmishers were literally blown to pieces from the muzzles of our guns. We found it would not be very healthy for us to remain here, no kidding, and we commenced making preparations for the retrograde movement. But when it came time to move the battery off, we found that one section had lost nearly all their horses, so we had to abandon it. It was not, however, until the guns were well spiked, disabled, and rendered unserviceable to the enemy. We finally came off with our 2 gun and horses. Captain Heckman ran a very narrow escape. He had just dismounted when his favorite horse fell, pierced by 2 balls, but it was not long till he had the saddle off and was again mounted on a fresh horse. He had gotten the battery off, and he rode back through the fire of the enemy to see if any of our boys were left on the field. And again, we were, of course, only under fire about 1/2 hour, but it was the warmest that we ever experienced.
Wow.
So that's Heckman's artillery unit.
You got to have either balls of iron or a lot of whiskey coursing through your veins to go into the muzzle of a cannon.
Yeah, especially
Napoleon.
Napoleon, yeah, that close up.
God.
I will say this, Harry Hayes believes that on day 1 here at Gettysburg, he's only going to lose 63 men. Okay, so.
Now, wait a second. Hold on. Say that again.
Harry Hayes believes that on day 1 of this fight at Gettysburg, he only is going to lose about 63 of his men.
Your tense is confusing me. You mean prior to the battle, he believes he's only going to lose 63?
No, during this.
So his estimate is 63 is his loss. Gotcha.
On day 1.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So they push them through the town, the Yankees.
Yes.
And then where are they positioned?
They're gonna wind up being on Middle Street, if you will. Okay, where they're gonna take, of course, hay out from the various backyards, and they're gonna wind up making themselves comfortable.
So the thing I'm looking up here is a map of Gettysburg in 1863, and if I can show people, because if you're familiar with the town today, no, it's a map of town of Gettysburg, because picturing the stuff against Heckman's Battery, because there's Heckman's Monument is there on the corner of Carlisle and Lincoln, right?
Where the battery actually was. If you are looking at if you're on Carlisle Street and the monument for Heckman is to the left, they're off to the right hand side. There's nothing there but fields at the time of the battle.
Let me see if this one's any good here. It's blurry. Hold on. Don't go to me, Court. Don't go to me. Or you can go to me, but you can't go. Don't go to the thing yet, because I want to make sure the map looks good here. Let me do it like this: tools, size, large. Here, let's see how this is here.
Am I going to be able to see this?
Yeah, it'll be up there once we've settled on one.
You need a bigger screen for in here.
I know. All right, this is good enough, I guess. Go ahead, Court. Go to the thing. All right, now.
Don't you got the Warren map? Are you kidding me?
Okay, hold on. Okay, Warren map. And that's got detail. I'm trying to find a map of the town, like a really good. Here, like this one. This is from the. How is that going to a page that isn't? What? That is weird.
The hypertext was probably not what you thought it was.
No, but it went to the page on the thing before it went on my computer. All right, it doesn't matter. We're boring the audience. Forget it. I'll find it another day and share it and whatever. Go ahead.
Okay, so with that, they're going to wind up.
Sorry. My point I was trying to make with the map
point?
Is that if you look at the town today, and you try to make this battle make sense, you can't at this point of the battle, because like Coster Avenue is surrounded by houses.
Right.
This field that Hayes is fighting on is houses.
Yes.
And the college campus has a lot more buildings than it did back then.
A bazillion buildings.
Yeah. The town basically stopped, I believe, what was it? Water Street was basically where town stopped, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of the outskirts, if you will.
Yeah, and you can actually see, Ken Rich showed me this one time on the alley that runs behind Rabbit Transit. If you take that to Water Street, there's one of those stone markers that marks the city limits. It's still in the ground, right in somebody's front yard.
Cool.
But it's that's where the limit used to be, and then it was nothing after that. And even Water Street itself didn't have a lot of houses on it, if I'm not mistaken. So that's wide open out there. So it's a lot easier to picture it if you just imagine nothing you see there today was there.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, take it away.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So they're going to wind up moving into the town, and then you're going to have the Hayes, and I don't know if it came from Gordon, but then there's that whole discussion on taking the hill. Okay.
Oh yeah, if practical.
Yeah, I think we could do a whole episode on that. So I don't want to get into all that, if you will.
We don't need it.
We know that, of course, Ewell, who's the Corps commander in that area, Ewell is going to decide. And by the way, I think Ewell was right.
I do too.
Okay, all right, good. See, look at that.
No, I agree. Well, why do you say that?
I say that because, number one, his two divisions marched and fought all day long. Allegheny Johnson, his other division, doesn't arrive until after dark. That other division has that other Louisiana Brigade.
Right. I agree. And it's also the fighting that his Corps did that day.
It was heavy.
It was heavy.
Oh, yeah.
And it was heavy and it was intense. And they've got to be tired. They marched 12 miles that morning, right?
Some further.
Yeah. And you're capturing Union prisoners too. So you hit the town, right? The north end of town. You got to get through. That's going to break you up, just like
Oh, by the way, this is since you said about the whole thing about capturing prisoners. You better believe they're capturing prisoners.
Sure.
And it got to the point where Hayes is going to wind up telling the prisoners he doesn't want to give up any of his men, so he just tells the prisoners to go to the rear.
Go back.
Yeah, just go to the rear.
I have a quote about that if you would like to hear it here. This was, who is this? fellow named Jackson. He says...
yeah, Jackson says a lot. I got a lot of Jackson,
Okay,
too.
well, so you might have this one already. He says, we ran through town and caught more prisoners than we had men in the brigade.
Yes.
We also captured 2 pieces of the battery.
That might be exaggerating, but close to it.
Yeah, I'm sure. It must have seemed like a lot, though. So I think his point. If you want, Court, you can go to the thing now. I found a point in the map here. So I believe, so here's the railroad
All right,
that
you
goes
see
through today.
to the north, you see where it starts to V off there?
This here,
Yeah, Heckman is going to be to the right of that.
to the right of this.
Yes,
So right in here. Now this V here is not there today.
correct.
They've kind of straightened these roads out. And actually, this part of the V is still there. It's Mummersburg Street.
Yeah, one of the little weird piece.
Right. And Water Street kind of goes just a little north of this creek here, this wiggly line, this black line. Sorry, this is as far as I can zoom it in, folks. But Water Street is
That's
about here.
Stevens Run.
Stevens Run, yeah, thank you. As you can see, there's sparse buildings out this way.
Yeah, very sparse.
Very sparse. So it's a lot more open than we see today. So there, I just want to help you put that in your mind if I can.
You know what?
And
you know what I think? I just thought of something
What's
here
that?
would help you. That'll help you at the next guide exam.
Right, help me fail twice.
There's this. It's like an overlay with the Warren map
Yeah.
that has all the crops and stuff, and it's huge.
Yes.
It's like bigger than more
I
than
want that.
more than 2/3 of this door.
Where do I get that?
I have one. I imagine that somebody has to have it somewhere, but it's amazing. I use it all the time.
Where'd you get it?
Where did I get it?
Yeah.
I found it in the it was part of, I bought it from some, what do you call them?
Person?
No. It was like a bookstore that's not there anymore.
Like a
It was from
like
a
an
bookstore.
outlet?
And they had all the crap leaning against the side,
Yeah.
and I saw it.
Oh,
So
I would love to have that.
it's
yeah.
it's a copy of a copy, so there has to be an original somewhere, but I have not seen an original. I've only seen the copy part like I have.
Right.
So it's very helpful.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right, go ahead.
So with that, they don't wind up taking the hill. They're going to wind up, of course, settling or trying to take, or they wouldn't have taken the hill. Culp's Hill, maybe. That's another story too. But nonetheless, they're going to wind up basically hunkering down for the night.
And
On Middle Street. They don't move up to the pre-attack position for East Cemetery Hill until earlier in the morning.
like 2 a.m, isn't it? They're woken up at 2 a.m., I think.
I don't think
aren't
it's, no, I doubt it's that early. I would say this, there is some disagreement on exactly when they move to Weinbrenner Run
they? Okay.
on the northern side of Weinbrenner Run before, that's where they're going to kind of get stuck for the better part of the day in the heat.
So it's what, Mr. G's?
This is going to
Is that
be
where Mr. G's
from,
is?
no, actually the line is going to wind up being near the German Reformed Church over to the Culp Farm.
Other side of the middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's going to be
Well, where's
along.
Weinbrenner Run? Doesn't that run?
It's underneath the school right now.
Yeah.
That whenever they did that middle school thing 10 years ago, that piece of ground is so altered
I know.
that it's insane. I mean, compared to the way it was.
Such a shame. But that's what I'm saying. Okay, so they're not where Mr. G's is, but they're to the east, to the left of Mr. G's if you're looking out of Mr. G's door.
Yes.
Towards
and left and rear.
Okay.
Okay.
So they're kind of up on the hill.
And then they're going to stretch all the way over to the Culp Farm, and then Avery, North Carolinians eventually move along the Culp Farm and closer to Hanover Road in that area.
Okay.
Before they go towards East Cemetery Hill at dusk on day 2.
Got it.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah, I got it.
Now-
so they're they're in that position most of the day, right? Like,
okay, so if we want to touch a little bit on that, let's talk about what they're doing.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
See, this is where I was going to get into the other brigade. So my internal timing is all messed up.
Sorry
right
about
now.
that.
That's fine.
Sorry.
Yeah, Matt changed the order of battle here on the fly.
Yeah, I didn't want to burden you. Also, I didn't want to make it a 4-hour show because both brigades have a full story to tell. So
I think they do.
yeah, so we should give them their proper due.
Especially the other Louisiana brigade is going to fight on day 3.
Right, exactly. So there's more to their story. Yeah. Okay. So the day 2 morning, daylight comes. Where are they?
Okay, daylight comes. They're going to be the whole thing about that there was supposed to be an earlier attack. Maybe yes, maybe no. That's a whole nother episode. Bottom line is that they're going to be ordered closer to get into position, if you will. And that's whenever they're going to go down to Weinbrenner Run. Now, the way Weinbrenner Run was situated, and I'll use Mr. G's because everybody knows that that's close enough, okay? But they're going to go from there, Weinbrenner Run, stretching over to the Culp Farm, okay? And they're going to be on the northern side of that. And some of the terrain at that point in time is going to give them a little bit of protection from what? They're sharpshooting all day long, okay? And every now and then, the Union cannon that are on East Cemetery Hill and even North Cemetery Hill are going to be firing at them as well. And those are some of the things that we cannot really perceive today because if you go up there, you can't see any of this. With the trees that shouldn't be there, with the whole middle school complex that shouldn't be there, as well as some other things. So they're going to be down on the northern side of Weinbrenner Run, skirmishing all day long and also taking some artillery shots. So as this is going back and forth, who are they going to be skirmishing with? It'll be what's left of the 11th Corps that's trying to guard the bottom and slightly up of East Cemetery Hill itself all day long. So when do they wind up moving forward? How far you want me to go with this? Because I don't know.
Tell them what they did.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to hear about the battle.
Okay.
It's addressing Gettysburg. Damn it!
What the hell's the matter with you?
Yeah, come on, tell the damn story.
Let me move over the
This is where we want to hover. We want to hover over the battle, and this is where we want to spend the time
let's
here.
hover over the battle, and let's talk about them eventually moving out here. And so, this is actually better than the map that you had. I just looked at it now.
Is that from the Leno book?
Yeah.
I should have just brought that out.
It's from Leno.
Okay.
So they're going to be posted there. Let's just say they're near Weinbrenner Run, skirmishing all day long. They're going to hear the guns at Longstreet, of course, go off, and the Confederate attack on the Union left. That will be Hood's division, McLaw's division, and so on as they go up the ridge. And then at that point in time, you got to remember the initial orders are for Ewell to make a demonstration. If it looks like it's going good, turn it into an all-out attack. Initially, they're going to wind up having artillery fire, so the artillery fire is going to begin first. Problem with Ewell, and this is a reason why I think General Lee was right. I thought Ewell should have moved back to the other side. Remember the whole idea where Ewell doesn't want to move because they had fought to get that position.
Right.
And now we're going to give it up. The problem is there's no good artillery platform for the Confederates whatsoever on that side of the battlefield.
Right.
So what do? They're going to wind up setting up on that little narrow ground of Benner's Hill where the Union cannons on Cemetery Hill have a bead on them and will decimate Latimer's battalion on Benner's Hill. So they're not going to be there long, but that's going to go on for probably no longer than an hour, maybe a little bit more than an hour. Then after the artillery fire is done, in typical Civil War fashion, what do? You send forward the infantry. And so they're going to wind up Johnson's going to wind up attacking Culp's Hill first. And once that attack is in full force with Johnson's division, those 3 brigades, Virginia, Louisiana, and Stewart's Mixed Brigade, are going to wind up hitting Culp's Hill after a big chunk of that Union Army left Culp's Hill. Again, that's another big story there. So let's pick up with Hayes and Avery. Hayes and Avery are going to be ordered to move forward, and Gordon was supposed to be in their support. So they are moving towards Cemetery Hill, of course, to make their attacks. Hayes is going to basically go towards the cannons there at the corner of the hill. This is another area you can't discern today because the Gettysburg Tour Center is there. Okay.
Right.
And that parking lot for the hotel. So kind of sad, but a big chunk of the ground that we're talking about here right now,
you can't even see it.
You can't see it here today.
It's obliterated by progress.
Yes.
End quote.
So let's go back to your Lieutenant Jackson here, if you will. And this is going to be part of the attack. So they're going to start moving towards East Cemetery Hill. Now, Hayes being closer to East Cemetery Hill, they're basically going to do kind of a part of their brigade's just going to basically go straight towards the East Cemetery Hill. The other part's going to do a little wraparound. And then Avery has to do a big wraparound to wind up hitting the other part of East Cemetery Hill. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So with that, this is a couple of the quotes that we have here. The 8th Louisiana's Lieutenant Jackson wrote that when Hayes popped up over the ridge, this is going to be from Wineburner Run, okay, the Yankee cannon vomited forth a perfect storm of grape, canister, and shrapnel, but old Harry shouted forward. In the growing darkness, keep in mind, these guys, this attack is going to start very late, even later than the one on Culp's Hill. And the problem is, you got to remember, say this to everybody, no daylight savings time.
Right.
Little bit after 8 o'clock, it is dark.
Right.
So we're getting near dusk right now. In the growing darkness, most of the shells by the Union were poorly aimed and harmlessly flew overhead. Hayes admitted afterward, quote from Hayes, "We thus escaped what in the full light of day could have been nothing else than a horrible slaughter." And Captain Seymour, again, Hayes' staff, agreed. The Yankees have anticipated this movement, and now 30 pieces of cannon vomit forth a perfect storm of grape, canister, and shrapnel, while their infantry pour into us close fire from their rifles. But we are too quick for them, and are down in the valley in a trice, while the Yankee missiles are hissing and screaming and hurtling over our heads, doing but little damage.
I like the use of the word vomit forth.
Yeah.
It's kind of gross. But it's a good descriptive word for what that must seem like,
yeah.
you know? Just as
Yeah, and they could rip your head off. Yeah.
yeah. Projectile vomit at its worst.
This is going to be, of course, backed up by some of the Union guys as well, complaining that the artillery is going to fire too high, and even some of the infantry is going to be firing too high. So Hayes is going to wind up, again, sending his brigade toward what? The cannon. You got to remember, a cannon is a great prize for infantry. And so with that, they're going to wind up going onto the corner there. Now, we got an angle, too, if you will, on East Cemetery Hill, kind of like the angle of Pickett's charge, that's going to wind up being hit. Am I not allowed to say that?
What?
The
Hit?
angle.
No,
Yeah.
no. I laughed at a comment somebody said.
Oh.
Sorry. Go ahead. I've got one eye over there, one eye
okay.
here, so I'm paying attention.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Hayes is going to go towards the angle there, and who's going to wind up being there? You got Ohio units. You got 107 is going to be close to the road. 25th and 75th are right at the angle itself. That is what Hayes is going to be coming towards.
Now, the Wainwright Avenue is down at the bottom of the hill now.
Yeah.
What was that back then?
That was the Brickyard Lane.
The Brickyard Lane.
Yeah. And I don't think we are certain that where it is today is the right place.
Yeah, I heard that it was
It's
to
like
the
down.
east of
Yes,
it.
it's
Yeah.
down from that.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the other side of the stone wall
Yes.
is where it was.
Yes, other
Yeah.
side of the stone wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it just makes sense to move it up to where it is because it's probably better for drainage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep the road from getting flooded because that is a wet area. You got Menchie Spring and everything down there. And so, of course, they're going to wind up going toward Michael Riedrich's battery. Have been firing canister as soon as the Louisianians, of course, come over the ridge. Hayes's right wing is going to be closest, and Colonel Harris, who is in charge of the 75th Ohio, is going to wind up taking over Ames' brigade whenever he moves up to division command after Barlow's taken out earlier in the action on day one. And this is a quote from Colonel Harris, 75th Ohio. They moved steadily as amid the hail of shot and shell and minie ball as though they were on parade, far removed from danger. It was a complete surprise to us. We did not expect this assault as bravely and rapidly made. In fact, we didn't expect any assault. I don't know about that. That comes from somebody who was there. Another Yankee claimed the attack is going to be sudden and violent. And Hayes is going to wind up hitting the 107th and 25th Ohio, while the center is going to strike the 11th Corps guys who are further down by Brickyard Lane that we just talked about where the stone wall is going to be. Avery was crossing at this time Culp's Farm. Remember, Avery and the North Carolinians did have farther to go. And so, problem for them, they're going to come under the sights of Stevens Battery that is on McKnight's Knoll, close to Culp's Hill there. And they're going to have 6 Napoleons as well and take a big chunk out of that North Carolina Brigade as it joins with Hayes' Louisiana Brigade hitting East Cemetery Hill.
By the way, I got that question right on the guide exam, McKnight's Hill.
Oh.
Yeah.
There you go.
What is Stevens Knoll? I forget what it was. But
the guy who owned it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Mm-hmm. Well, don't forget it.
Didn't help. Go ahead.
Okay, so
I'm sorry. So Avery's coming across from the Culp Farm. Now, again, today you go out there. There's a football field. There's a school. There's all this other stuff. Right?
A big chunk of that ground is messed up.
Yeah, I would say. But when Avery is finally getting, kind of zeroing in on his intended destination,
which is East Cemetery Hill, specifically Ricketts cannons.
Right. Okay. So he's like basically under, at that point, he's under Stevens's guns.
Yes.
And so,
except whenever the undulations in the ground are going to hide them, which is not always. It's just like when Pickett's Charge came across. Sometimes they're going to be able to see them, sometimes they can't. But also remember, in complicating things for the artillery guys, is once you have all the smoke, you are now at dusk. You're getting, of course, darker and darker. So how much can you really see?
Right.
So by and large, as a whole, I would say that the guns on East Cemetery Hill and even the ones on McKnight's Knoll did not have enough of an effect to stop them. We're going to need, of course, the infantry.
Once they get under the guns.
Yes.
Yeah. But as they're across. Now, there's a patch of woods there today. Was that there then?
That big giant patch of wood. I hate that patch
of
woods.
where it's like there's a gate there. It's like, I don't know, it's like a dump or something.
Yeah, I think it's somebody's private property, but it's like you have this section, and if you look on the older maps, that piece of property, just the way it's shaped, there was nothing there but a field at the time of the battle.
So there were no woods there.
And today you got this massive tree cover that's, my goodness, some of them trees got to be, 70 plus feet
tall.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
So, okay, and that's another thing that obscures our view and idea of what everything looked like. East Cemetery Hill, the part that isn't owned by the Park Service has private or school property right up to it.
Yes.
I mean, everywhere.
Right. And that school property and that private property, like anything, is part of the battlefield.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay, gotcha.
You want to add something there?
No.
You look like you were going to add something.
No, I'm following along the story here. I'm just looking at this part because I have a quote that.
Okay.
But I'm sure you have it too.
Yeah, I have another quote from the 17th Connecticut, who's going to be down there as well. 17th is going to be, so we have Ohio right there at the corner, and then the 17th Connecticut is to the right, moving towards where Avery's going to hit. And this is what the Lieutenant Daniel says in the 17th Connecticut. While the Tigers were coming across the meadow, George Woods and Bill Curtis were sitting down behind the stone wall, right there at the foot of East Cemetery
Bill
Hill.
Curtis?
Bill Curtis, that's what it says.
Wow.
Okay.
He's old.
He's everywhere.
Hi, I'm Bill Curtis. Wow.
They were sitting behind the stone wall, and you would have supposed that they were shooting at a target. I saw George shoot, take a dead rest, and I heard him say, he won't come any further. Will he, Bill? Then Bill shot. He said, I got that fellow, George, and they kept it up in that way, perfectly oblivious to the danger of them to themselves.
That's amazing, too. The guys that
Some
can
guys
humor
that can do
themselves
that, yeah.
or amuse themselves amid the chaos. that's got to be a defense mechanism.
It does,
right?
because think about this too. And this is another thing that I always talk about here whenever we do the regular tours and stuff. These guys, vast majority, both armies, seasoned veterans. They've been doing this for 2+ years already.
Right.
And if that's the way some of them handle it, then good for them.
Yeah.
They're going to have a much better chance of making it all the way through.
Amen. I mean, you'd have to think, like, if you've basically come out unscathed, or even if you were scathed a little, but you survived and you can come back and fight, there has to be a point where you're like, you understand the odds of getting hit, and you're just kind of like, look, there's nothing I could do about it. I could hide behind this wall, but my face is still exposed. Yeah. So, but let's have some fun. Let's have a little fun while we're doing this. Yes. Because it helps. It's got to be.
It's a coping mechanism.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that. Pooping my pants would be my coping mechanism.
We could have done that first, but eventually get used to it.
I guess. I just can't imagine when you read these accounts from these guys. Like, I can't imagine how anybody can get used to it, but obviously they do. Yeah. They're and that's I think also part of the human psyche is you just get used to things.
Yeah, human nature is always going to be the same. Is the same as it is today back in 1863.
Yep.
I would also say that there's a point where you can't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
And then you have them snapping.
Well, that's right when they break. Okay, go ahead.
All right. I got another one here. We're going to start talking about how they're going to wind up hitting the wall there at the corner, the angle on East Cemetery Hill there. The Tigers are going to wind up hitting at the wall's angle, and then the hand-to-hand fighting is going to be obstinate and bloody. Now, this is going to be from Schuler. Who's Schuler? I forget. Oh, he's from the 107th Ohio. They kept coming up the hill into the flat area in front of our position. Then we opened up our fire on them. Some of them fell, and they came within about 15 feet of our location. Our adjutant asked their captain, "Will you surrender?" "No, sir." So the adjutant shot the captain. Laidley, another guy, of course, with the Union. We lay behind a stone wall and received them with our bayonet. I was standing behind the wall when they came over. A rebel officer made with me with a revolver and the colors by his side. I had no pistol, nothing but my sword, and just as I was getting ready to strike him, one of our boys run him through the body, and so saved me. There was a good many killed in that way. I never saw such fighting in my life. It was a regular hand-to-hand fight.
Yeah, I got one.
Go ahead.
From the 25th Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
He recalled that the Confederates put their big feet on the stone wall and went over like deer over the heads of the whole regiment, the grade being steep and the wall not more than 20 inches high. I like that. Their big feet.
The big feet, yeah. I saw that one too. I know, it's kind of funny.
I think you just read that one. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so as of course, the Louisiana Tigers are smashing into the men from the 11th Corps. Eventually, they're going to, of course, wind up falling back, and as they start to fire back, the Tar Heels are going to wind up advancing too, and they're eventually going to start ascending towards the batteries. Remember, the batteries are going to be the target, if you will. And General Howard is going to send an appeal to General Hancock for help. Hancock's on the other side of the hill. He's going to respond by sending Samuel Carroll's brigade over.
Now, in Carroll's brigade is the 7th West Virginia. Is that not true?
Yes, it is.
Courtney, you want to? Courtney's from West Virginia. You want to talk about your boys?
Yeah. Huge unsung heroes. I mean, I know it wasn't a full breakthrough on July 2nd, but talk about getting close, on the most important ground on the battlefield. These guys were largely where I am from.
Which is, of course,
Wheeling,
Chattanooga,
Alderson, Broadison.
Right.
Alderson, Broadison.
Yep, that's where they were from. They're in Morgantown, Fairmont, other places. But, also the famously the unit that had the correct number of stars.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask you. So there's that story about them stealing a star from was it
14th Indiana.
Indiana Regiment and putting it on their flag because they had just received statehood 11 days before.
June 20th.
Yeah, I got that wrong on the exam.
What?
Yeah, sorry.
What?
Because who cares about West Virginia?
What the?
I'm just kidding.
I am an excellent banjo player, Grant.
Bonfire.
Anyway, so yeah, Dan, do you believe that story?
It's plausible. There are some who say no, that it's more that post-war reconciliationist kind of
fanciful storytelling.
Yeah, storytelling.
Yeah. What about you, Court? Do you believe that?
I do believe that.
You do.
It's
I would
typical West Virginia.
It's like Crocodile Dundee.
But wait a minute,
Grant.
I would tend to more agree with it than not agree with it. Okay, I just wouldn't say 100%.
Yeah, I don't think it's that far fetched.
Oh, I don't think it's far fetched at all.
That's why I used the word plausible.
Yeah, plausible. Okay, good. I got it.
But the brigade was also called the Gibraltar Brigade.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
They're from Spain.
From Spain. Yep. Yep.
Now you got everybody confused.
Why did they have that name?
Because of the Rock of Gibraltar.
Near Spain.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I rest my case.
Gibraltar stood strong. They stood strong. Yada yada.
Yeah. Okay.
Yada yada over the best part. Seinfeld.
Now, this is just a hypothesis.
All right. So go ahead, Mike, with the story. Now, that was a little aside there for people who like those little trivial stories. Go ahead.
Okay, so Carol's going to be coming over, and then Carol's going to wind up rushing them through the cemetery. By this point in time, it's going to wind up being very dark and smoky, that the men are going to be running into the headstones as they run through the cemetery.
Yeah, I bet.
By this point in time, the Confederates are going to lost all cohesion, and we're just two mobs basically rushing towards the batteries. And so with that, 8th Louisiana, Lieutenant Jackson, we got a lot of accounts from him, claimed that it was so dark by the time we made the final rush was made, we couldn't tell whether we were shooting into our own men or not. That's a problem.
Yeah. Now, wait. Carroll's brigade arrives before or after the incident with Weidrich's battery?
Carroll's brigade, I know I was kind of curious to that as well, as why they have this account. I would say they're not here yet.
Okay, so because the Weidrich's battery, everybody that is really into this knows this story, but for the sake of the people who are new to it or newish to it, tell us the anecdote about the guy who captures the gun and what happens.
Well, there's 3 versions of that.
Well, give me one of them.
All right. We're not there yet.
Oh, I thought.
No,
that's what I'm asking.
They're going towards it. It didn't happen yet. We're not in real time here with the battle.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because it would take. It's impossible to.
Yeah, I know we're not doing real time battle.
What the heck's the matter with
Okay, I got confused with the timeline there. So that with Weidrich's battery happens after Carroll arrives. Maybe is not engaged.
Yeah, because the whole account does not involve any of Carroll's battery. Carroll's brigade.
Right.
Yes. Does that make sense?
Well, then it would be before Carroll arrives.
Yes, or how about he's on the way?
Yeah, I always read that.
Fine.
Yeah, he's on the way.
They're mixing it up in the guns as he comes.
Yeah, that right. I thought that Carroll arrives just in the nick of time as the Confederates are like on top of the hill amidst the guns.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
Okay.
So now, I just want to touch a piece here on Avery's, North Carolina.
Gotcha.
Remember, they're going to be going for Ricketts Battery. Okay. And the estimate is there that probably only about 150 or so rebels are going to cross the wall on the Union right for the final charge against Rickett. One of those Tigers who accompanied the Tar Heels was future General Leroy Stafford, Colonel of the 9th Louisiana, who sprinted ahead to be the first to reach the guns. That's Ricketts' guns. This is on the other side. However, he was passed up by his major, John Hodges, who was followed closely behind by the regiment's color bearer, who defiantly jabbed the Tigers' colors next to a cannon. About that time, more reinforcements are going to be running towards Weidrich's battery, and they're going to be from Jasanowski's guys, who also fought on day one. And and Colonel Schurz is going to be in the area as well. When Schurz is going to make it to the battery, this is a quote from Schurz, he's going to describe it as being an insane scene of a melee. So everybody's just all crazy as it's getting dark there. Some of the Confederates are going to be among the guns in an intense hand-to-hand fight. Federal gunners using all the artillery tools, the rammers, the handspikes, and even rocks to knock down the enemy. Conflicting testimony, I touched on this, about the fight for the guns. Confederates are going to claim that they captured the two batteries and held them for some time. Rebels are really only going to wind up entering into the batteries for a brief time. And so let's go over a few of those instances that you have been talking about here.
Okay.
Especially with our guy Gussman.
Before you do, just that whole idea of them fighting at night, right? With, there's obviously the hand-to-hand stuff, but there's the they're firing too, I'm sure. There's people firing at each other. And those muzzle flashes have got to be blinding in the darkness.
Especially from a cannon.
Oh, yeah, well, for sure. But, I'm imagining that it's very hard for these guys to see what the hell they're even fighting.
Yes, and
right?
I think that's one of the reasons why we know what happens. Eventually, the Tigers and North Carolinians get pushed back down the hill. Okay, that's what eventually happens. But all that mishmash in the middle, all we can do is the best we can with the accounts we have with those who are there to try to make some sense out of it.
Yeah.
But can you make total sense out of this?
No.
I don't think so.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
Because they probably couldn't. That's the point. Go ahead.
All right. So let's go over how the whole deal with the color bearer, the 8th Louisiana, and that whole thing. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this is how it goes. This account is going to come from Gussman, who is in the 8th Louisiana Infantry, and he's going to wind up entering the battery. Okay, of course, he had to fight to get up to the battery. So him and Jackson's going to write about this too, that Gussman is going to wind up being wounded, and then our colors lost. And what actually happens is a lot more interesting. And Gussman enters the battery. He waves it over the captured gun. This is Michael Weidrich's battery, okay? And so Lieutenant Young of the 107th Ohio is going to say that the rebels were yelling like demons around the cannon when Sergeant Nussbaum is going to point out to him a rebel surrounded by a small group of men waving the flag, okay? So that would have been Gussman with the 8th Louisiana. Young orders his Buckeyes to fire on the flag. Gussman's going to fall to one knee, still clutching the flag, and the other Tigers ran away. Young is going to write, I ran forward. This is one version. I ran forward, revolver in hand, shot down the rebel color bearer, 8th Louisiana Tiger Regiment, as it proved to be by the inscription on the vile rag, and sprang for the colors at the same time. A rebel, seeing his comrade fall, sprang forward and caught them, but fell to the ground, where I wrestled them from him. These in one hand, the revolver in the other, I was in the act of turning towards our men when a rebel bullet pierced my left lung and arm. And I kept on my feet till I reached our men, when all the strength left me, and my sergeant, Henry Brinker, caught me in his arms as I was falling. I learned subsequently that a rebel lieutenant followed me with a drawn sword and was about to strike me when Lieutenant Sir of our regiment gave him a saber cut on the shoulder, which brought him down. Now, the capture of the Tigers' flag is a point of pride for the Buckeyes here, okay? And then after the war, different versions are going to come from this. Jones, where this assortment of quotes is, Jones is the one of the books that I recommend. He's from LSU and all that sort of stuff. Very involved down there. He's going to wind up saying that the different versions are going to appear after this is all over in the post-war years. However, he tends to believe Young's version of the story because he's going to know how he was wounded and what happened there. So there are some other versions. Another version is whenever they're going to wind up having the dedication of Weidrick's Battery Monument. And Sergeant Smith of that battery is going to say that one rebel planted his colors on one of the lunettes in the first section and demanded the surrender of the gun. He was promptly knocked down with a handspike and the flag captured. That implies that Weidrick's artillerymen captured the flag. Okay, so already we got things askew here.
Right.
And then let's take another one from the all the other evidence shows it's the 107th Ohio who captured the 8th Louisiana Infantry flag because they were there in the Weidrick's battery. And still another version of the incident is going to come from Sergeant Nussbaum, also in the 107th. This is what he says. I noticed the color bearer of the 8th Louisiana Tigers waving his flag near the battery and the color guards massing around him on both sides. I called to the attention of Adjutant Young to this demonstration, and there being about 7 of us, we all at once, by command of the adjutant, fired a volley and advanced toward them, scattering the color guards in every direction. The color bearer, being severely wounded, dropped to one knee, holding his flag with such a firm grip that the Adjutant Young, who was trying to wrench it from him, could not do it. The color bearer had a large Navy revolver in his right hand. I saw him pull the trigger and shoot the adjutant through the shoulder blade, and the adjutant in turn planted his saber in the color bearer's breast. The color bearer held onto the flag and the saber with a firm grip until he dropped over dead, never loosening his grasp until he drew his last breath.
Brutal stuff.
Brutal stuff here.
Yeah.
Now it goes on.
Okay.
We're still quoting here. We made a quick examination of the color bearer's body and found 7 bullet holes through him. We also examined the contents of his canteen, which being nearly full, contained whiskey and gunpowder, which we judged accounted for his desperate bravery. And I like this next part too because it kind of goes to the whole idea of the Louisiana Tigers and stealing crap all the time.
Right.
Well, I'll keep going here. I took his knapsack, which was a very neat one, made of leather with a goatskin cover, and which contained a single biscuit, just lately baked and still being warm. Being minus my own knapsack, I carried it a while, but my comrades made so much fun of me that I threw it away, an act which I have been sorry for ever since.
Yeah, it sounds like a nice bag.
Yeah, it was. It was a pretty bag.
Yeah. They probably called it a purse. Nice purse.
So I like these kind of stories with the soldier, and it kind of shows you how, we're all human. We all have these interactions.
How about this one here, though? Let's see. Although Hayes did not mention it in his report, that is, hand-to-hand combat erupted around the guns of Weidrick's battery. One of Hayes's men threw himself at the muzzle of one of the guns, exclaiming, I take command of this gun. A German artilleryman yelled, Du sollst sie haben, and pulled the lanyard, blowing away the Confederate soldier.
Yes.
The Federal infantry and artillerymen fought with bayonets, club muskets, pistols, rammers, rocks, particularly. We said that already. I love that story.
Yeah. I skipped over it because I couldn't say it in German.
Well, that's okay. While you were telling the other stories, I was saying it in my head.
How am I going to say this?
How do I say Du sollst sie haben? I don't know.
We got to get Ralph to do it.
Yeah. But that story, though, I cannot. First of all, he had to be drinking whiskey and gunpowder to stand right in front of the muzzle.
And say something like that. Yeah.
Just kill the guy and then tell him you took his gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So... Now Carroll's brigade's going to wind up arriving. So that was all going on, and for the moment, Weidrick's and Avery's guys are going to wind up taking part of Ricketts' battery. Then in the dark, quiet's going to settle over, and they prepared for the coming counterattack. And out of the darkness, the Tigers could hear the sound of masked men on the move. And remember, we're at dusk. We're already dark in many ways. I will say this too. I don't know what time it actually rose, but July 1st was a full moon. So there would have been different times at night that you would have been able to see that shadowy kind of figure thing.
Right.
And that very likely could have been here because they talk about the shadowy figures coming their way. Hayes was not certain, and this is a key here. Hayes was not certain if it was his own men or the enemy, because another thing that Harry Hayes was told is that Rhodes is supposed to be coming up on your right front, okay?
Right.
Rhodes never attacks.
So, okay, the overall plan at this point is that, the attack on Culp's Hill, like the attack down Longstreet's attack, is an echelon attack, correct? Or is that
No, Culp's Hill, they went forward.
they
at the same
just all
time.
go at the same
Yeah.
time? Okay, but now they're already fighting at this point. Is that
Yes.
right?
Oh, yes.
So
yeah.
right,
yeah,
so
because the Johnson's division attacks Culp's Hill before Hayes and Avery move towards East Cemetery Hill.
okay, and then and that's supposed to continue around to where Rhodes is.
Yes.
Which he's a little to the west on the
Mhm.
other side of Cemetery
Yeah.
Hill, where Colt Park is today, basically, right?
Yes.
At that point, he
right
didn't
along,
move him
right
or
along
anything.
Long Lane.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so who's coordinating this? Because Rhodes,
I think it all goes back to
it's supposed to be Ewell, right?
Well,
is what I mean.
But Ewell's order was a demonstration. Turn it into an all-out attack if it looks
Right.
good.
So why is Rhodes not moving?
Rhodes is one of the big mysteries on the other side of the hill here on the evening of the 2nd, because Rhodes seems missing. Okay?
Yes.
We think that I don't know details on this, but we believe that he was sick. Senior brigade commander is going to be Ramser. Ramser is going to decide that all of the Union cannon that he sees on West Cemetery Hill, he decides that it's not a good idea, and they never move.
Okay.
So,
Well, he's right.
yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't a good idea. So he's smart in not doing
And
that.
in fact, West Cemetery Hill, all the Union cannon that were that by that point in time with the 11th Corps artillery under Osborne and all the artillery reserve that came up, Western Cemetery Hill is a much more gentle slope. They would have been decimated. You would not have needed infantry to shove them back.
Right.
So
Yeah. All right. But you were getting to the point where that Hayes sees Carroll's brigade and thinks it's his relief.
he wasn't sure.
Right.
Okay. So in what's going to wind up happening, he was told that that Rhodes' division might come up on his right, and he thought that maybe those figures could be it. But whenever the Yankees started firing volleys into them, he gets the message here. And then he's also going to be able to see that between the flashes of the light that there is another line behind them. And at that point, he could see that he's clearly outnumbered, and they're going to fall back down the hill. And he's going to have a general withdrawal of the Tigers.
Smart move. Now he withdraws them, I think, behind a stone wall first, and then
Yeah, it's not going to be all at one time.
Right.
But eventually they're going to wind up going back to where they were.
back to where they started.
Yeah.
Now when he gets back there and he sees Gordon's men are right where they left him.
He was very upset.
Yes.
Okay. Hayes is going to be very upset, and it's going to wind up being that Early is the one that holds Gordon back. It's not Gordon's fault. Early, his division commander, didn't send him forward.
Was he led to believe that he would be supported by
Yes,
Gordon?
that was part of the plan.
Yeah.
That was part of the plan.
So do we
However,
know why Early didn't?
I think the reason why Early didn't is because he did not see enough that he thought it would be successful, and it would be a waste to sacrifice another brigade. Can you imagine that? You're part of a brigade that's being sacrificed.
Yeah, so Early doesn't send for Hayes and tell him to withdraw. Hayes has to come up with that on his own.
Yeah, well,
and
yeah.
Early basically is just like, well, lost one of them or lost two of them. I'm not going to do another. Yeah,
That's messed up, but I
That is
guess that's
messed
one
up.
of the things with war.
yeah. Huh. Okay. So they go back. He's pissed off. It's getting to bedtime, I guess, right?
It's well past bed. But I would say by the time that they are out of harm's way, we are well after 9 o'clock.
And that's pretty much it for them for the night.
Yes.
All right. And then next day is
Other than your typical, once you have your battle line, you have your skirmishers out.
right. Okay.
I will say this, and this is something that's often overlooked with the whole Cemetery Hill situation. Remember, Cemetery Hill is a whole focal point for the defense of the Union Army. They build a battle line around it, and
Right.
the Confederates come right up to that in and around the town. So your skirmishers are skirmishing the entire time. All right.
Yeah.
And if you think about this, and I'm going to use because it's in my head right now. One of the brigades that's going to be along Long Lane is going to be Thomas's Georgians. Thomas's Georgians were never involved in any major action. They were just skirmishing, and they had 22% casualties in their brigade just from skirmishing for that, almost 3 days. Well, effectively goes into the fourth. You could say 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, so July 3rd, another big exciting day.
Yes, it is.
Morning fighting on Culp's Hill. And
With the other Louisiana brigade.
Right. And then, of course, Pickett's charge and some cavalry action all over the place and everything like that.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
What's going on, though, for Hayes? Is he getting into any of this fun? Or
They're holding where they are.
They're holding where they are.
That's it. Which is near the edge of town, the southeast quadrant of the town.
And then July 4th, everybody kind of pulls back to Seminary Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
So they abandon the town.
Yeah.
But there's still a little bit of fighting going on there.
There's still skirmishing going on. Skirmishing goes on. Actually, skirmishing goes on in some places until the 5th, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Until they fully get out of that area.
Thank you, Matthew Gillespie, for the super chat saying, help Matt pay for dinner. So
Another West Virginian.
Another West Virginian. The West Virginians are the good ones. Very generous. Very generous. So are non-West Virginians, of course. Anyway, so the Battle of Gettysburg is over for the Louisiana Tigers of Hayes's brigade. How's that?
Yes.
Okay, because they're not they are a brigade of the Louisiana Tigers.
I'm just thinking about this like out loud. I'm wondering how many people were like going to take issue with that. Kind of curious.
Well, what that it's not just them.
Yeah, that it's not just them.
Well, listen, we'll get more
We're gonna
views.
We're gonna start a controversy.
Right, let's start a controversy. Let's get everybody talking. Well, I mean, you have evidence to back up your claim, do you not?
Yeah.
Of course. So then let them challenge, and we'll show them the evidence.
Okay.
All right. So what then we'll do now, or what we'll do now then? What we'll do next is I don't know. We're going to take a break is what we're going to do.
All right.
And when we come back from the break, we're going to ask your kind indulgence by calling in 717-420-1978. We'll be right back after these words.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topic. 717-420-1978. See you in a sec.
Sing it as we used to sing it, 50,000 strong, while we were marching through Georgia. Hurrah, hurrah, we're bringing the Jubilee.
At Digital History Pioneers Foundation, we are about grassroots history on digital platforms. That means we are about podcasters, documentarians, YouTubers, and even TikTokers. All of these creators are out there trying to share their love of history with the public. They don't need ideas, they need funding, both from viewers and corporate donors. DH Pioneer's initial funding focus is on the Civil War era, with a special emphasis on the Addressing Gettysburg podcast. So be a vital part of the unique content Addressing Gettysburg has in store by donating at dhpioneers.com and help bring your love of history to the people. Digital History Pioneers is an IRS Section 501c3 approved charitable corporation that makes any donation tax deductible to the fullest extent of the law.
The Gettysburg Museum of History, located right here in the center of Gettysburg, PA. Owner and curator Eric Dorr grew up here and has spent his life collecting and preserving history through artifacts ranging from the Civil War, the Battle of Gettysburg, World War II, presidential items, pop culture, and more. His museum is free and open to visitors Wednesday through Sunday, 11 to 5 p.m., where you can stop by and immerse yourself in some of the most amazing artifacts that you would never believe exist in the middle of Gettysburg. If you're a fan of Band of Brothers and Everything Easy Company, you'll love his exhibit featuring the Dick Winters collection and artifacts from D-Day. You can even own your own piece of history by buying one of the many relics they have for sale in the museum and on the website gettysburgmuseumofhistory.com. The Gettysburg Museum of History is a non-profit 501c3 organization with a foundation that allows all purchases and donations to keep the museum operating and open free of charge. They have been featured on the History Channel, the Travel Channel, the Smithsonian Channel, and the Science Channel. Now you can check them out on American Artifact, the series on the YouTube channel, The History Underground. So that's the Gettysburg Museum of History at 219 Baltimore Street or the GettysburgMuseumofHistory.com.
If you like this podcast and what we're doing here, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.
Tickets charge take?
That's another great question.
Who can forget the sounds of the 60s?
The 1860s. I can't, and you can't either. Now, there's Marching Through Georgia, the exciting new album by Billy Webster. All of your favorite hits of the 1860s in one place. Such hits as Gary Owens, the Battle Hymn of the Republic, All Quiet Along the Potomac Tonight, Marching Through Georgia, and much, much more. So what are you waiting for? Go to billysongs.com and order your digital download of Billy Webster's Marching Through Georgia today. That's billysongs.com. Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center, Gettysburg's premier museum, is housed in the historic Lutheran Seminary building constructed in 1832, a witness to the first day of battle. The museum's 3 floors of exhibits connect visitors to the dilemmas that led to the Civil War, provide a powerful and personal view of the battle's first day, and explore one of the battlefield's largest hospitals. No visit to Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center is complete without a guided tour of the building's famous cupola, where on the eve of battle, officers and civilians saw thousands of Confederate soldiers' campfires burning to the west, and Brigadier General John Buford watched for vital federal reinforcements as fighting erupted on the morning of July 1st. Today, you can stand where Buford stood and discover how this view helped chart the course of the Battle of Gettysburg. Your trip to Gettysburg is not complete without a serious visit to Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center, Gettysburg's premier museum. Purchase tickets online at seminaryridgemuseum.org or call 717-339-1300. To get tickets or a cupola tour, listeners may call or walk in and mention addressing Gettysburg, or by ordering online using the promo code AG1863 for 20% off. Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center. It began here.
There's a devil to pay.
When you're dragging ass out of bed and the hair's mussed up on your head, you picture the 20th Maine and you're happy once again. Fight the battle against being slow with little ground top, bro.
When you're dragging ass out of bed, the hair's mussed up on your head. You picture the 20th Maine, and you're happy once again. Fight the battle against being slow with little brown top bro.
A Addressing Gettysburg's Little Ground Top by Bantam Roasters is available at 82 Steinware Avenue in Gettysburg or at addressinggettysburg.com/cafe.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Where are you going to be, Mike, June 13th through the 18th this year?
Civil War Institute at Gettysburg College.
Hey, me too.
How about that?
What a coinkydink. Gettysburg College's Civil War Institute is having their 2025 summer conference, and it's not too late for you guys to get your tickets. And let me tell you something. It is a lot of fun. If you haven't done it before, Mike's done it. I've done it every year. I see you there.
Yeah. By the way, I've done it since 2006.
Okay, so you've got a lot more experience with it than I do.
Yes.
It is a lot of fun.
It is.
Would you liken it to summer camp for Civil War nerds?
Yeah, the best summer camp for Civil War nerds.
Right.
Yes, yes.
And you don't even have to worry about sneaking alcohol in because we have a beer social at the end. Right? It's not really like camp in that regard.
I think they gave me 2 tickets. I'm like, I could barely drink 2 beers, really?
Yeah, all right, I'll take it next time. But it's a lot of fun. This year, they're going to honor the life and scholarship of our buddy and their late director, Peter S. Carmichael. The lineup of over 45 distinguished speakers, including yours truly. I'm not a speaker, but I'm going to be on a panel. And the more prominent speakers are going to be Gary Gallagher, Kent Masterson Brown, Carol Reardon, Harold Holzer, Caroline Janey. All of them except for Gary have been on this show. Aaron Sheehan Dean also on the show. Joseph Glathart has not. Scott Hartwig has. Jen Murray has. And they're all going to be there as well. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to explore some of the major topics that animated Pete Carmichael's scholarly work, such as the culture of the common soldier, gender politics and honor in the Old South, doing history in public, and Robert E. Lee in history and memory. There's also battlefield tours that you can go on. Indianans at Gettysburg, the battle for the common soldier, Gettysburg, why they fought, how they fought. So many things. Your cup will runneth over. You will make new friends, and it will be a lot of fun. You'll be glad you did it. Give them a call. Tell them that you heard about it on Addressing Gettysburg, and there might be a little treat in there for you. 717-337-6590. That's 717-337-6590, June 13th through the 18th, 2025. Gettysburg College Civil War Institute Summer Conference. See you there.
Groovy music, babe.
It's great music.
Super chats of $10 or more rise above the din in the comments section. Now that that's out of the way, let's ask a Gettysburg guide. Here's Matt and the gang.
Wow, that sounded wonderful, Courtney. All right, let's get the hoedown started with our first caller. We don't have a name there, but we got 970. You're on the air, sir or madam. Oh, it's
this
six
is
questions.
Oh, my goodness. Here we go.
How you doing, Mikey? 6 questions. Let's. If you want to join Mikey on the phone, by the way, it's 717-420-1978. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mike, for doing this episode. Very much appreciated.
Very welcome.
I have a question. The
Just
Louisiana Tigers, did they have, well, I have to be generous to everyone else's time, too. I mean, I got to limit myself here.
That's true.
So.
That's true. Go ahead.
But did the Louisiana Tigers have a sharpshooter detachment with them, or did they have sharpshooters with them? Because I noticed there on Baltimore Street, around Mr. G's, that's where most commonly their skirmishers and their sharpshooters are located.
Yeah.
So did they have a sharpshooter detachment?
I would say, I don't think, and this goes for Lee's whole army, they really didn't start to organize sharpshooters. It was done initially at by the Gettysburg, like at a division level, where you would take your best shots and you send them up. But it's not like an organized, like we know the 1st and 2nd U.S. sharpshooters and how they're divided up into those companies from the states. It wasn't organized like that until much later. I would say the whole idea with them being on the skirmish line, effectively, if you're on the skirmish line, you're going to be a sharpshooter, at least hopefully good at shooting, because you're going to be trying to take off somebody who's doing the same thing against you, 400, maybe as far as 500 yards away. So, but that's on the other side too. So there were no sharpshooters down on the Union part, on that part of East Cemetery Hill and North Cemetery Hill, facing off with Hayes men who were on the southeastern edge of town.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I would make sense of it.
One of the least understood portions of this battle is that skirmishing that happens all the way around that Cemetery Hill area from the west side to the east side.
Mm-hmm.
But I think looking at like Mr. G's and looking at the bullet holes in Mr. G's, it's understandable that the skirmishing is happening and people are shooting at each other in that area, and among them the Louisiana Tigers.
Yeah, no organized units that I know of or had come across when I was gathering stuff for this, so I would say no organized units, but certainly your best shots are going to tend to be, on the skirmish duty. So
I can add something I think that might help Mike.
Go ahead.
Both Mikes, Mike squared, and the Tiger rifles were initially called the Tiger rifles because they used the Model 1841 quote-unquote Mississippi rifle.
Yeah, which is very popular sharpshooter rifle that's going to be used by the Confederates.
Yeah, it's a very capable gun, very capable. And most of Hayes' brigade really used like smoothbores and conversion muskets and stuff. So like if you're stacking a Model 41 up against a gun like that, you can really reach out and touch something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That it, Mikey?
I got one more thing. One of my favorite stories of the war actually comes from the Louisiana Tigers, and it actually features Stonewall Jackson. This is during the Valley Campaign, and at one point during the Valley Campaign, and I don't know, I think this came from Richard Taylor. Basically what happened is at one point, some groups of soldiers of the Louisiana Tigers start breaking out and dancing. Now, Stonewall Jackson, being the very pious, devout man and not really all that much into dancing, looks out on them and says, "Awful silly men to do serious work."
Stonewall Jackson, another West Virginia.
I like the quote.
Mike, I don't know how you remember all this stuff, but he does, and that's why he passed the guide exam.
God bless him.
God bless him indeed. God help me. All right, Mikey, thank you very much
Have a good night, guys.
for the call. You're welcome. Okay, so what I'm going to do, there's other people in the call queue, but I'm going to do a phone call and then a written question.
One thing to the Mississippi rifle?
Go ahead.
Yeah, that is 100% true. And remember when I talked about how whenever Wheat's, that one company in Wheat's battalion that's going to wind up getting the fancy Zouave uniforms with the blue and white striped pants. Also, that guy Richards is going to buy everyone in that company the Mississippi rifle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
so,
wow. Okay.
That's one of the things that's actually documented, which is kind of cool. And by the way, the Mississippi rifle did not have a bayonet lug, so that's why they were issued the Bowie knives as well.
Oh, okay. Oof.
So
Grizzly. Ashley Nemec says, I'm very excited for this episode. Over the summer, I read The Colors of Courage by Margaret Crichton. There were a lot of stories about how the reputation of the Louisiana Tigers preceded them, including one about a young woman who ended up flirting with one and was surprised when it came up that he was one. Anyway, my question is, where did the reputation and lore of the Louisiana Tigers originate? What made them so scary to Northern citizen compared to the Confederates in general? So just a refresher there.
It started all the way at Camp Moore, where these guys signed up to join the various regiments, companies, battalions. They're sent to Camp Moore. They have the training. That's whenever this whole thing about stealing, because you got to remember where they're recruited from, all right? The lowest scrappings of the Mississippi. That's where these guys are.
Right.
A lot of them are Irishmen who are used to fighting and drinking. It's part of their way of life, if you will.
Yeah.
To say nothing of stealing. And so by the time they get to Richmond, the same thing's going to continue. Maybe a little more control now that you have commanders who are going to be willing to deal with them. And then in battle, they have proven themselves again and again and again.
All right. Let's go here to Nicholas on the phone. Nicholas sent in a written question, so I'm going to cross that off because he's calling in now. But Nicholas, you're on the air, sir.
Hey, how we doing, guys?
Good. How are you doing?
Hello.
Good. Up past my bedtime, so
thank you,
been
sir.
staying up
Thank
all
you
night for this one.
I appreciate it. What's up?
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I just wanted to thanks, Mike, for bringing up the story of Adjutant Peter Young and the 107th Ohio.
That was his question.
My great-great-great-grandfather
No way.
was part of that regiment. So,
Excellent. I love it. I love it. I'm envious of you, by the way,
Yeah.
buddy.
So he was wounded at Chancellorsville during Jackson's flank attack. So he wasn't at Gettysburg. But of course, there's a special place in my heart for the regiment and for Peter Young. And I've been doing a lot of research on the guy. And the main thing for me is I just can't understand how this guy did not get the Medal of Honor, because if you read all the accounts, it almost sounds like not only did he save his regiment's flag, but he also captured the flag of the
enemy,
Louisiana, which I just think is tremendous.
Yeah.
And the main reason I wanted to call in is because I actually have an article from the Cleveland Daily Herald from July 23rd, 1863, that talks a little bit about it and about Captain Young.
You have an excerpt there?
Yeah. So it was actually believed, it says, we were rejoiced and surprised today to meet Adjutant Peter Young of the 107th, whom we had mourned as dead. The report having reached the city that he was mortally wounded at the Battle of Gettysburg. So he's presumed dead, and I've actually talked to some of his family members through Ancestry.com trying to get a little more of the backstory on him. And they shared a couple of letters with me, and it was apparently he had to find his own way home after the battle.
Wow.
So, he must have just turned up, these 20 days after the battle when everybody thought he was dead, which I just think is, that's got to be the coolest thing ever, to walk into your hometown when everybody thinks you're dead and show up, right?
Yeah. I love it. Very, very good stuff.
Yeah. So it goes on to say, and I think when the argument comes over who actually captured that flag, it's actually mentioned in this article, that whole story of how he captured the flag that you referred to earlier. So that's as early as July 23rd that they're talking about it. And it's pretty much the same story that he'll give to Batchelder in 1867, and kind of matches up with all the other stories as well.
Matches up, and it's contemporary accounts, which is everything.
Right.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was really happy to find that article, and like I said, I've been doing a lot of research on this guy, just trying to find out as much as possible as I can. Like I said, I can't believe that this story isn't more told. And it's kind of one of those, in my opinion, for Gettysburg, it's kind of like the greatest story never told. To not only save your regiment's flag, but to capture one as well. But maybe that's just another, he's another victim of being German and part of the 11th Corps.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that, and whenever you're, part of the cool things about research, you're obviously finding this out, is whenever you can start to make these connections, and then you got people who have more information, and then contemporary accounts with letters and that sort of thing to learn even more about the whole ancestor thing, which brings it that much closer to reality.
Yeah.
It's all part of who we are.
Yeah, it connects you to the past and everything. Yeah. Nick, thank you very much for staying up past your bedtime with us. And contributing the question, sir.
Yeah, and just one last thing about it was, they're still looking for that flag to this day.
Yeah. By the way, you tell me if you feel the same way. That one that they said is the 8th Louisiana flag looks like that it was drawn by an artist who worked for Disney in the 1930s or 40s. It's ridiculous. I can't believe that they actually give it credence.
What?
So,
There was
he knows
there
what
was
I'm
some
talking
guy
about.
from the New York's Cayuga County Historical Society that he had wrote to the governor of Louisiana at the time, Sam Houston Jones, and he informed this Jones that they had the flag, but this was on December 8th of 1941, the day after Pearl Harbor. And so they say after that it kind of just got forgotten about, and nobody's ever been able to go back to that information and see if there was any, to put any lead on that.
Yeah.
So that lead kind of just died out because of the war.
Yeah, but okay, so the one I'm referring to is the one they actually there's a picture of that's out there. Do you know
right,
that one?
and but it doesn't have the 8th Louisiana.
No, it doesn't, and it looks like it's
Right.
something from that time period, like the 30s,
it just says
30s or
Louisiana
40s.
Tigers on the right-hand side.
Yeah, which could have been something that maybe one of the veterans units did at one point in time. But you got to remember something: these Tigers are going to be in Lee's Army of Northern Virginia. Lee's battle flags are that traditional 4-foot by 4-foot square of the St. Andrew's Cross, as you call it, with the other stuff. Sometimes you got letters and numbers on it, and sometimes you don't. But it would be that style of flag, not what is in that picture.
Right, I agree with you.
Okay, good.
What Young had to say about it after the fact, what he told Batchelder, he said, "The colors I left with Sergeant Major Henry Brinker, who next morning gave them, according to my request, to Lieutenant F.C. Sir, who took them to 11th Corps headquarters. I have tried to obtain them since, but cannot ascertain what disposition was made of the colors captured by the 11th at Gettysburg."
Wow. Yeah, never.
So yeah,
but might
mystery.
turn up sometime.
And I talked to Scott Mingus about it as well, because he had written that book about the Tigers at Gettysburg.
Yeah, which I recommend.
And he said,
very good.
He's had no luck finding that.
Yeah. I haven't seen. In fact, I haven't seen any verified Tiger unit flags. And granted,
Okay.
I've only been looking for 6 months, so I haven't found anything. That doesn't mean it's not there, but I haven't seen any.
Huh.
But remember, Army of Northern Virginia, their style, that square.
Right.
So.
Right.
All right, Nick.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Get to bed, sir.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
All right, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you,
very
Nick.
much.
Thank
All right,
you.
good
Thank
night.
you.
Okay, so let's see. Ralph Siegel, a fellow licensed battlefield guide, he has 2 questions. He says, were any mulatto troops in the Louisiana regiments?
I see. My opinion is there has to be. Okay. We talked about the intercultural race mix that's going to be in that city. Again, more than 300 years. That's one reason. But the other reason is because there was a wounded colored soldier in the 8th Louisiana Infantry. Okay. Buzzy and Buzzy have him listed here. His name is Charles Lutz. And I just want to read this thing that's about the entry. Charles F. Lutz, this is the 8th Louisiana Infantry, slightly wounded in the left arm, 2 July. He was left with a Confederate wounded at Gettysburg and captured at a Gettysburg field hospital on July 5th with a favorable prognosis. Exchanged from DeKalb Hospital September 16th and was furloughed on the 30th in 1863 and never returned to his unit. This single 20-year-old tanner from, can't say the town, born in St. Landry's Parish, Louisiana in 1842, was a free man of color of mixed ancestry. He enlisted June 23rd of 61 at Camp Moore, was present at 1st Manassas, Gaines Mill, 1st Fredericksburg. He's captured at 2nd Fredericksburg, and he's captured at 2nd Fredericksburg on the 3rd of May, 1863, and he's also present at 2nd Winchester. So the key there, free man of color, and you got to remember, down in the South, especially Louisiana area, you're going to have free blacks, and you're also going to have slaves, and some of those free blacks were slave owners themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, a lot of the free, they had to be in these units. They had, because they came from the same area. And so that whole melting pot of all those cultures, all those races, and you have, granted, you only got one definitive one here of the whole mixed ancestry thing, but I would say there has to be more. So
Probably, yeah.
yeah, statistically.
Yeah. It's their home too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, his second question was, is it still necessary to flush the transmission every 100,000 miles on Honda hybrids?
If you're going to keep the vehicle, yes, I would recommend you do that.
All right. Thank you, Ralph. Great question, Ralph. Let's see. Dick Fitzwell on the phone. Oh, he got me. Richard Grant, you're on the air. Grant, go ahead.
Richard here.
Come on. Here it's well past everybody's bedtime, Grant. Let's go.
That's a bright, sunny day for me. I don't know what you're talking about.
Because you're in Australia, Grant. Come on, please. For the love of God. We're all tired and hungry.
Yes, sir. I have to say the previous call for Nicholas was very cool, very interesting.
Yeah, it
I really
was.
liked that one.
Yeah, it was. I didn't have to interrupt
It
it.
was much better than the first. That first caller, he was no good though.
Oh, 6 questions. You don't like him, huh? You're no fan?
Oh no,
All right,
stand
Grant.
him.
Grant, Jesus. What do you want, Grant? What's the question you have?
And Mike, for Mike, is your back okay? It must be sore.
My background, what?
Is your back... I know, he's got that weird accent. It's hard to understand. He said, is your back okay?
Is Mike
it must
okay?
be...
'Cause
Well, I got it.
Yeah, I know what he's going to say.
Yeah. Is your
he's
back
kind of
okay?
carrying the show.
Let me finish. You ruined the joke. Is your back okay? It must
Well,
be...
that's usually your role.
Is your back okay? It's ruining... He said, is your back okay? It must be
move on.
sore.
Because
you're carrying the show.
Well, thank you. I'm going to take that as a compliment. Thank you.
And I'm going to take that as an opportunity to hang up on Grant. Go ahead, Grant. What?
Okay, my serious question. Is there any evidence of Hayes, the commander, drinking in battle, or was his reputation as a heavy drinker like a camp thing?
Good question. I would say, being that he does a pretty good job with his brigade, I would say it's going to be more of a camp thing when there's no danger of having to move his brigade into a battle. It just, would make sense, because once you do the drinking, especially the way they did with whiskey, I don't think it takes too much for you to be off your rocker.
Yeah.
And so, being that he does perform so well, and he does get the accolades or the comments from his higher commanders, I would say certainly was sober during battle. At least that's the way I perceive it to be.
All right. Anything else, Grant?
Yeah, I just think when I've done a lot of reading about the battle, the war, and all that, you hear about these commanders drinking in battle. Not many, but some.
Mm-hmm.
And I just can't understand how they could possibly do it. They're out in the sun all day, not much water.
Yeah.
It must affect your decision making, and certainly your mental side of everything.
Yeah.
That's it's a really good point. I think that about heavy drinkers today.
How do you function?
How do you function? I know somebody who can drink his face off one night and get up the next morning and go for a jog. And I'm like,
no.
I don't know how you, I mean, he drinks, and it's like, he gets up, he's in good shape.
Well,
He's in good shape.
Yeah, good for him.
Good for him. I have a heart attack watching him drink and thinking about the jogging in the morning.
I have a heart attack watching the show.
Grant, you are a gentleman and a scholar, and may I say to you, as a diplomat,
And you're a lady and a kind feminine.
You are a kind feminine.
A kind feminine.
Gotta go.
Thank you, Grant. Eric Houston wants to know, what was the significance of the Louisiana Tigers' involvement in the Confederate retreat after Gettysburg? And how did their actions during the retreat reflect their role in the larger campaign? I think he just...
Okay, let me say this. I actually looked for instances with that, specifically of course, the big volume on the retreat is Kent Masterson Brown. The only references that he has and quotes and stuff that he has from the Louisiana soldiers are ones that are wounded, and basically they're just followed from hospital to hospital. There's no incidents about the thievery, the drunkenness and all that sort of thing, just about hospitals and moving around and that sort of thing.
Someone else has a question. You're talking about thievery and stuff. Robert Maggie, or is it McGee? I always forget. I think it's McGee. Robert M. He says, I've read a few stories about how the Gettysburg citizenry were petrified by the Tigers' fierce reputation and how it was reflected in some of their interactions with the soldiers, making themselves at home in the town. But it's been a while, and I don't remember any of the details. If Mike knows and can share any of these anecdotes, that would be great. As I recall, they were pretty funny, though probably not for the citizens having those conversations.
Yeah.
Can you give it like just a basic one? Just he forgot them. So go ahead, give us a basic one.
Most of it's going to have to do with most of it's will have to do with whenever. Of course, they're in and around the town. That's not a heavy situation. We're going to be going into battle in the next 2 minutes, that sort of thing, where they're going to be soliciting, if you will, whether it be for liquor or whether it be for food. And the reputation, we talked about this early on, is going to, everybody's going to know the nature of the Louisiana Tigers and what they're capable of. So they're going to panic right away and just flat out give them whatever they want. So I will say one other thing. There's another story where the Tigers were going by, and they're going to wind up stopping at a farmhouse, which they often would do, stop at various farmhouses and such. And there's going to be a young boy who is rocking on the porch and in a rocking chair.
Okay. I thought you meant playing guitar.
No. He is about to rock off of the porch, and the Louisiana Tigers are going to break ranks to get over there and catch that boy from falling off of the porch. So again, there is a human side to this as well. You know, they're not total, idiots the whole time.
Yeah, they're not cruel to children.
No.
Just
in fact, they're going to. There's another one where they're going to make friends with him and that sort of thing, about being buddy and stuff. And he gave that one of them gave the girl that the jaw harp and all that kind of stuff, little trinkets and stuff. Yeah, they're probably stolen, but still.
Yeah. There's a story of I forget which kid it is, but he sees this is on June 26th. I guess these would be Gordon's men, though, so it's not the Louisiana Tigers.
Where are they?
Petey Winter's candy store, and they come out with their hats brimming with candy, and one of them sees this little kid, kind of looking with lust in his eyes for the candy, and he gets him, lets him have a handful of them and stuff. But that was Gordon's brigade. That wasn't so. Sorry, I'm so sorry, everybody. I am so sorry. I messed that up. Yeah. Oh, and I can't cut this out. This is terrible. Glenn M. says, I'd like to ask Mike about what it is like for Hayes's brigade to lay in Weinbrenner's run from sunup to sundown on July 2nd, knowing if you stick your head up, you lose it. I can't imagine a few thousand men laying in the sun all day, all of which have to go to the bathroom, waiting, get up. People make your reality hell. The sun alone can kill you. I'd be ready to F them up.
Yes.
Okay. So that wasn't a question. Well, was it a question? Yeah, it is a question. What any stories
they
about?
Do. There are several accounts of this where they have to lay, whenever they find the spot where they're going to be out of the direct line of rifle fire, most of them are going to have to lay absolutely flat. Okay. Again, what he just said about you just stick your head up, boom, it's going to get shot off. You're going to have 3 bullets heading towards your head.
Yeah.
And so they did complain about this, and they're going to wind up passing the time there at Weinbrenner Run by playing cards, believe it or not. and of course talking the whole time, and of course drinking and eating whatever they happen to have on them.
Delicious.
So just biding their time.
Just biding your time. It's got to be a nightmare.
Oh, it was. And again, they were not happy about this, but that's one of the natures. And one of the reasons why, remember, they go out there earlier in the morning on day 2. The attack is not made until dusk. And so for that long period of time, they had to stay there, because if they were to move during that daylight from their position, and they would have to either make a sprint and be in the enemy's view for, I don't know how many yards, depending where they all were, anywhere from 50 to say, 100 yards, and they would get picked off.
Yeah.
So what are they going to do? They're going to lay down.
As would I.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For doing this. It's good to see you. We don't see you often enough.
I know. Well,
you're gone all winter.
I'm gone all winter, and it's bus season.
Yeah.
Although I did see your buddy during one of my bus tours.
You saw Hubity-Doo-Dah.
Yeah.
So by extension, you saw me.
Yeah.
From my past.
I was like, Matt Callery?
Yeah. That's funny.
He's like, yeah.
I don't know why he acts like he barely knows me. I mean, we were very close. It's so funny that
he said you were close.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it took me a while he said enough, and I was like, it's got to be Matt.
We were very, no, I gotta call him now and be like, how could you act like you barely know me? Like, I mean, I get it,
It's been a long time.
It has. Listen, thank you everybody for watching. We got a lot of views tonight. That's great. Thank you so much for that. And also, thank you for the super chats. That was super awesome of you to do that. Courtney, are you awake back there?
I am.
Okay, good. Did you have fun tonight?
I did.
Good.
I did. Loved it.
You did. I could tell. And, I like that new angle on your camera there. It's a more interesting angle. What do you think? Not of you per se, but just, the room. That's terrible. Jesus, don't do that so quick. That's awful. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Don't forget, you become a patron over at patreon.com. You know when these things are happening all the time. You get to see other shows being recorded long before everybody else sees them. And, of course, you help support the show. Goodbye!
The Gettysburg Guide is hosted by Matt Callery with Mikey B. Bariski, and Courtney Micker. Produced by Matt Callery and Courtney Micker. Guides appear gratis, but they would love for you to hire them for a tour on your next visit to the battlefield. To be put in touch with one, send an email to matt@addressinggettysburg.com. Thanks for watching.
Our hearts so stout have got us fame, for soon 'tis known from whence we came. Wherever we go, they dread the name of Gary Owen and glory. Instead of swallow, drink down ale and hail, a reckoning on the nail. No man forget shall go to jail from Gary Owen and glory. Instead of swallow, drink down ale.